Chapter 9:13. When Yi Xian's blood rushed out of his body, a monstrous hostility and killing intent instantly enveloped the entire Devouring Spirit clan. At this moment, the entire Devouring Spirit clan was shocked. Because the murderous intent and evil aura were truly too powerful. At this time, Yi Ling suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. She looked at the sky and saw Yi Xian's blood boiling in the air like oil. Because most of Yi Xian's blood had left his body, his vitality was fading at an extremely fast speed. Yi Ling didn't think much. She grabbed with her right hand and a powerful force directly enveloped the blood. The next moment, the blood was forcibly sent back into Yi Xian's body. Boom! As the blood entered his body, Yi Xian's body trembled violently. A powerful aura swept out from his body, and this aura contained two kinds of power. Vitality and Death Qi. Life and Death Realm. Because of the sudden mutation caused by the sword and blood he had swallowed, Yi Xian directly reached the Life and Death Realm. But at this moment, his blood was activated, and he gradually fell into a state of madness, losing his mind. Yi Ling quickly put her right hand on Yi Xian's shoulder, and a powerful force directly enveloped Yi Xian. She didn't dare to let Yi Xian completely enter that state of madness, because Yi Xian's mind might be completely eroded by the killing intent, and he would be lost in the killing intent and hostility. However, at this moment, she could no longer suppress Yi Xian's blood. A powerful force directly shook Yi Ling back a few meters. The next moment, Yi Xian slashed at Yi Ling. Yi Ling's pupils shrank slightly. She didn't dodge, and Yi Xian's sword suddenly stopped half an inch away from her eyebrows. The sword in Yi Xian's hand and his body trembled crazily, and his whole face twisted as if he was struggling in pain. Yi Ling was about to attack again when Lian Qian appeared beside Yi Ling. She hurriedly stopped Yi Ling, shaking her head. Don't hold back. The more you hold back, the more dangerous it will be for him. As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian. Let him release. Let him release the murderous aura in his heart. Yi Ling was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly raised his head and roared furiously. After that, he turned around and transformed into a blood-red ray of light that charged towards the four white-robed old men. The sword light was like blood, dyeing the sky red. Seeing Yi Xian rushing over, the white-haired old man in the lead suddenly pointed his finger forward, and a white blade of light flew out from his fingertip. The blade of light streaked across the sky, tearing everything in its path. In the distance, Yi Xian slashed down with his sword. Boom! The white blade of light exploded apart. Yi Xian continued forward and slashed at the white-haired old man in the lead. The white-haired old man took a step forward, and a white square seal suddenly flew out from his sleeve. A strand of powerful spirit energy suddenly erupted from within the seal. Rumble. The sky trembled violently as Yi Xian was instantly blasted flying, and the execution heaven sword in his hand suddenly flew out while he was flying backwards. The boundless sword. It arrived in an instant. The white-haired old man's expression changed slightly. He took a step back, and then he sat on the ground and grabbed forward. This grab directly grabbed onto Yi Xian's execution heaven sword. However, the tip of the execution heaven sword had stabbed half an inch into the center of his forehead. The execution heaven sword trembled violently, but it was unable to move another inch forward. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly appeared above the white-haired old man. A heavy sword had suddenly appeared in his hand, and he held it with both hands as he swiftly slashed it down. This slash carried the might to collapse the heavens and the earth. Meanwhile, the white-haired old man suddenly grabbed Yi Xian's execution heaven sword and stabbed it towards Yi Xian's stomach. He was even swifter. However, he'd overlooked something, and it was that Yi Xian wouldn't dodge at all. So, it was just as the white-haired old man wished. His sword stabbed into Yi Xian's stomach while Yi Xian's sword struck his head. Bang! Hiss! The white-haired old man's figure was blasted flying. When he finally stopped moving, half of his head had split open. It wasn't just his head, even his entire body had cracked apart like a spider web. But it didn't take long for his body to recover at an extremely swift pace. Yi Xian was just about to attack again when the other three white-robed old men by the white-haired old man's side suddenly vanished on the spot. In the instant that the three of them disappeared, Yi Ling also disappeared. Hiss! A sharp voice resounded in the surroundings. The expressions of the three white-robed old men changed drastically. They hurriedly stopped and attacked simultaneously. However, Yi Ling's body suddenly became illusory. One of the old men's expression changed drastically. Triple-dimensional space, as he spoke, a dim light suddenly flew from between his eyebrows. Hiss! The old man's head was pierced and blood splattered. The other two old men retreated frantically and didn't dare to attack again. Without the array to restrain Yi Ling, they were simply useless in front of Yi Ling. Yi Ling looked down. At this moment, Yi Xian had charged into the devouring spirit clan's cavalry. The cavalry was no match for Yi Xian. Every time Yi Xian swung his sword, a bloody head would fly. In a short period of time, Yi Xian had killed more than a dozen devouring spirit clan's cavalrymen. After they were killed, Yi Xian absorbed all their souls and blood essence. After Yi Xian absorbed the blood essence, his aura became stronger and stronger. Becoming stronger through slaughter. Seeing that no one could stop Yi Xian, Yi Ling immediately turned to look at the white-haired old man in the distance. The white-haired old man's expression changed drastically and he hurriedly said, "Sacrificial array." As his voice fell, a white beam of light suddenly shot up from the depths of the distant mountain range. The next moment, an illusory giant blade suddenly condensed in the sky above the devouring spirit clan. This giant blade was blood-red in color, and countless tiny blood-red dots were emitting from it. Seeing this blood-red giant blade, Yi Ling stretched out her right hand and the azura thorn appeared in her hand. At this moment, Zhang Wenxiu, who was in the distance, suddenly swept the two away with her spear and appeared beside Yi Ling. "Don't fight head-on. There is still a mysterious expert in the devouring spirit clan who hasn't taken action yet." Yi Ling looked into the depths of the mountain range. She could feel that there was an obscure aura in the distant mountain range. It was very powerful. Moreover, there was more than one. Zhang Wenxiu continued, "You won't be able to destroy them all by yourself. Moreover, as far as I know, this clan has a spirit-restraining divine array. If this array is activated and they use their experts to pin you down, you can't do anything." With that, she looked at Yi Xian below and said, "He is in a very bad situation now. If he doesn't wake up, he may never wake up." Yi Ling slowly closed her eyes. In the distance, the blood-red giant blade above the devouring spirit clan also stopped and did not move. Obviously, the devouring spirit clan did not want to have a life-and-death struggle with Yi Ling. At this moment, with Zhang Wenxiu here, they could not pin down Yi Ling at all. If they could not pin down Yi Ling, it meant that they could not use the array to trap Yi Ling. In this case, if they wanted to kill Yi Ling, they might have to use the power of the entire clan. Moreover, if Yi Ling chose to escape, it would be difficult for them to kill him even if they gathered the power of the entire clan. Now that the devouring spirit clan had suffered heavy losses, they did not want more people to die. Of course, in the end, it all depended on Yi Ling's choice. If Yi Ling really wanted to have a life-and-death struggle, they had no other choice but to kill Yi Ling at all costs. After a while, Yi Ling suddenly opened her eyes. She flew directly to Yi Xian's side. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly turned around and slashed at her with his sword as fast as lightning. Yi Ling did not dodge, and Yi Xian's sword did not really slash down. His sword stopped half an inch away from Yi Ling's eyebrows. Looking at the bloody Yi Xian in front of her, Yi Ling's tears suddenly flowed down. The man in front of her, no matter what, would never hurt her. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly turned around and rushed into the distance. Yi Ling suddenly grabbed Yi Xian's hand, and a powerful force directly suppressed Yi Xian. The next moment, she turned around and looked at the white-robed elder and the others in the distance, her face as cold as ice. Devouring Spirit Clan, in this life, my brother and sister will slaughter your entire clan. In the depths of the mountain range, a light laugh resounded. I'll wait for you, brother and sister, to come. Yi Ling glanced at the depths of the mountain range and then said, Azura cavalry, retreat. After speaking, she turned around and disappeared into the sky with Yi Xian. At this moment, the Azura cavalry also retreated like a tide, and the Devouring Spirit Clan's cavalry had lost more than half of its members. This was naturally because of Yi Xian. In the sky, Zhang Wenxiu did not leave immediately. Instead, he looked at the depths of the mountain range and said, You violated the agreement signed with teacher. In the depths of the mountain range, the voice laughed and said, The one who signed the agreement was the current patriarch of the Devouring Spirit Clan, not us. Moreover, your teacher is no longer in this world, isn't he? Zhang Wenxiu sneered, Teacher should not have been merciful in the past. The voice said softly, In this world, the strong are respected. When your teacher was alive, he was strong, and everyone in this world had to reason with him. Our Devouring Spirit Clan could not defeat him in the past, so we accepted whatever he said. But now, no one can force our Devouring Spirit Clan to be reasonable. Zhang Wenxiu said with a smile, It wasn't a bad thing for all of you when teacher reasoned with all of you. But now, if your Devouring Spirit Clan continues to act like this, then I'm afraid no one will be able to reason with you. The voice laughed and said, Perhaps. No matter what, this world owes us, and we will take it back bit by bit. Zhang Wenxiu shrugged and said, Good luck to all of you. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and disappeared into the horizon. The patriarch of the Devouring Spirit Clan said softly, These two women are extraordinarily strong. The voice resounded once more in the mountain range, This world is no longer the world of the past, and our Devouring Spirit Clan is no longer the invincible Devouring Spirit Clan of all those years ago. Now that our Devouring Spirit Clan has emerged into the world, the forces outside will inevitably panic. In order to prevent them from joining forces against our Devouring Spirit Clan, send out an order that our Devouring Spirit Clan has emerged into the world, this time for the supreme treasure in Yi Xian's possession and the Myriad Dimension Library. Hearing this, the patriarch of the Devouring Spirit Clan nodded slightly, understood. In the depths of the mountain range, a voice sounded softly, This time, no one can stop our Devouring Spirit Clan. Chapter 9:14. Azura Hell. Yi Ling directly brought Yi Xian back to Azura Hell. Yi Ling sat cross-legged on the ground. His blood was boiling like magma, and a powerful aura was constantly surging out of his body. Yi Ling gently placed her right hand on Yi Xian's shoulder, and a gentle force constantly surged towards Yi Xian. She didn't dare to suppress it because Yi Xian's blood had mutated. She was afraid that if she used too much force, it would backfire. On the side, Zhang Wenxiu curiously looked at Yi Xian. She had to admit that Yi Xian's bloodline was too strange. This was the first time she had seen such a powerful bloodline. At this moment, she was a little curious about Yi Xian's identity. This guy's father or ancestor was definitely not an ordinary person. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. In his eyes, there was a sea of blood. At the same time, a powerful and violent aura exuded from his body. Yi Ling hurriedly grabbed Yi Xian's hands and said in a trembling voice, Big brother. Big brother. This form of address made Yi Xian's body stiffen. Gradually, the violent aura around him calmed down. Zhang Wenxiu glanced at Yi Ling. This guy actually called Yi Xian Big Brother. This relationship was a little confusing. After an unknown period of time, Yi Xian's aura gradually calmed down. Although his blood was still boiling, he wasn't as crazy as before. At least, he didn't attack anymore. Yi Ling stood up and turned to look in the direction of the Devouring Soul clan. Her expression was as cold as ice, making people shudder. At this time, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly said, "Don't be impulsive. You can't destroy the entire Devouring Soul clan by yourself." Yi Ling was expressionless and didn't speak. However, the Azura thorn in her hand was trembling violently. A moment later, Yi Ling turned around and walked in front of Yi Xian. She held Yi Xian's hands tightly and didn't speak. At this time, Fu Wenzong, Shen Xinghe, and Lu Yong arrived. When they saw Yi Xian, they were both relieved. When they learned that Yi Xian had gone to the Devouring Soul clan, they immediately rushed over. Unfortunately, they were a little late. The battle was already over when they arrived. At this moment, the space in front of Zhang Wenxiu suddenly trembled. A moment later, Zhang Wenxiu's mouth curled into a sneer. What Devouring Soul clan said? Shen Xinghe looked at Zhang Wenxiu and said, "Zhang, Yi Xiu. What do you mean?" Zhang Wenxiu said calmly, "The Devouring Soul clan spread the news that their goal this time is the Universal Library and the treasure in Yi Xian's hands." Hearing this, Shen Xinghe's face immediately sank. Good plan. Originally, when the Devouring Soul clan appeared, some ancient forces would definitely not sit still. After all, in the past, the Devouring Soul clan almost destroyed the entire fifth dimension. Therefore, when the Devouring Soul clan appeared, in order to protect themselves, many ancient forces would definitely join hands. But now, the Devouring Soul clan said that their goal was the Universal Library and Yi Xian's World Prison Pagoda. Therefore, many ancient forces would definitely not take action. They would just sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. They would let the Devouring Soul clan and Yi Xian and the Worldwide Academy fight to the death. This was the reality. If it didn't concern them, they would just ignore it. Shen Xinghe said in a deep voice, "The other forces will definitely be gloating." Zhang Wenxiu said with a smile, "Of course they will gloat." Before this, no one dared to have any ideas about the Universal Library. Whoever fights will die. But now, someone has finally come forward. Therefore, their chance has come. Saying this, she shook her head. It has been too long. So long that many people have forgotten the terror of the Devouring Soul clan. Shen Xinghe nodded. In fact, he did not know the strength of the Devouring Soul clan because he had not experienced the era of the Devouring Soul clan. Qingcheng, Yi clan, Ancestral Temple. Ancestor, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince will be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man wearing a black robe. Not far behind the old man stood a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. And on both sides were the Yi clan's elders. Why? At this moment, a timid voice suddenly sounded in the ancestral temple. Everyone looked over and saw a little girl standing at the door. The little girl was about 12 or 13 years old. Her two small hands were tightly holding the hem of her skirt. Her face was sickly pale, looking a little weak. There was even a trace of timidity in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling. She was Yi Xian's sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to dismiss Yi Xian, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to everyone in the ancestral temple and said timidly, "Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is a prince. Why did you cripple him for no reason?" The Great Elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. "This is a clan matter. Why are you interrupting? Leave." Yi Ling was obviously afraid, not daring to look at the Great Elder. However, she did not leave. Instead, she mustered up her courage and walked into the ancestral temple. She bowed again to the elders on both sides. Dear elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting for the clan, and it is unknown whether he is dead or alive. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to strip him of his position. This is really unfair. Impudent. The great elder suddenly raged. Whether or not he is crippled, it is not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away. At this time, the new Prince Yi Lang suddenly laughed. He should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The great elder coldly replied, then flog him 30 times. Very quickly, 2 Yi clan's guards rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, this is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years. Even now, he is fighting for the clan. The clan is unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new prince, Yi Lang. He knew that his chance to shine had come. The guard sneered, young Master Yi Lang inherits the prince's position. It is everyone's wish. What are you yelling about? As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded. Yi Ling's right cheek instantly turned red and swollen. However, she did not cry. She only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled, what's your name? The guard hurriedly bowed, subordinate Zhang Mu greets the prince. Yi Lang nodded, you're not bad. After I become the prince, I will need 10 personal guards. You can be my personal guard from now on. Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed. He hurriedly bowed deeply. This subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the prince, even if it means death. Yi Lang nodded, drag him away. This person is causing trouble in the ancestral hall. Do not hold back. Understood? Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang. When he saw the killing intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this time, Zhang Mu seemed to have seen something and stopped. Inside the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. He was wearing a tight-fitting robe that was tattered and covered in blood. This person was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a cold smile. Inside the ancestral hall, all the elders frowned. The great elder squinted his eyes, his face dark and gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pang! Zhang Mu felt dizzy, and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there. He rushed towards Zhang Mu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man. How dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Pooh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, your man? As he spoke, he stomped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, Prince, save me. Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu, as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being cut by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed, brother, it hurts, it hurts. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Pang! Qingcheng, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides, there were the elders of the Yi clan. Why? Right at this moment, a slightly timid voice suddenly resounded within the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that Yi Xian was to be replaced, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to everyone in the hall, as she asked timidly, "Great Elder, my brother, Yi Xian, is the prince. Why did you cripple him for no reason?" The Great Elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. "This is a matter of the clan, what are you interrupting for? Leave." Yi Ling was obviously afraid, not daring to look at the Great Elder, but she did not leave. Instead, she plucked up her courage and walked into the hall. Once again, she bowed to the elders. "Dear elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting for the clan, and it is unknown whether he is dead or alive. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to strip him of his position. This is really unfair. Impudent." The Great Elder suddenly raged. "Whether or not he is crippled, it is not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away." At this time, the new prince, Yi Lang, suddenly laughed. "You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others." The Great Elder replied coldly, "Then flog him 30 times. Very quickly, Yi clan guards rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists, and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years, and even now, he is fighting for the clan. The clan is unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new prince, Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the position of prince. What are you yelling about?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry, and only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "This subordinate, Zhang Mu, greets the prince." Yi Lang nodded. "You are very good. After I become the prince, I will need 10 guards. From now on, you will be my guard." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed, and hurriedly bowed deeply. "This subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the prince, even if it means death." Yi Lang nodded slightly. "Drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall, do not show mercy, understand?" Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu did not know what he saw, but he suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe, and the robe was tattered, and there was blood everywhere. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's mouth curled into a cold smile. In the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The Great Elder narrowed his eyes, and his expression was frighteningly gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his expression turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his expression changed. He quickly looked at Yi Lang, and was about to speak, when Yi Xian suddenly leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pang! Zhang Mu's head spun, and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there, and he rushed towards Zhang Mu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you!" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Pooh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's expression turned ugly, while Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stomped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, "Prince, save me." Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu, as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's appearance, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced apart. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, tears welled up in her eyes. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Pang! Chapter 9:15. Azura Hell. At this moment, Yi Xian's aura had completely calmed down, but he still hadn't woken up. Yi Ling had been guarding him silently from the side. Shen Xinghe and Lu Yong hadn't left either. As for Zhang Wenxiu, he'd slipped away somewhere. Yi Ling gazed silently at Yi Xian, and she'd never let go of Yi Xian. At this moment, the events of the Green City kept surfacing in her mind. Before she'd met Yi Xian, she'd never felt familial love in her entire life. Because she'd shouldered the responsibility of protecting the Azura Hell since she was born. The Azura Hell had trapped the undead emperors, but hadn't it trapped the Azura clan as well? In order to deal with the Azura Hell, she'd utilize the Azura clan's secret technique to enter the cycle of reincarnation to search for the prophet. However, she hadn't expected that she wouldn't be able to find the prophet and would instead become Yi Xian's younger sister. It was this young man who'd made her feel familial love that she'd never felt before. Right at this moment, Yi Xian's fingers suddenly trembled. Yi Ling hurriedly looked at Yi Xian and said softly, "Big brother?" Yi Xian slowly opened his eyes. His pupils were still slightly scarlet, but there was some clarity in them. Yi Xian turned to look at Yi Ling and said softly, "Ling, Yi Ling instantly smiled when she heard Yi Xian. She'd rarely smiled in her entire life. Yi Xian slowly sat up, glanced at the surroundings, and then said, "Have we left the Devouring Spirit clan?" Yi Ling nodded, "Yes." Yi Xian smiled, "It's good that you're fine." Yi Ling gazed at Yi Xian, "Big brother, what do you think?" "What do I think?" Yi Xian's expression instantly turned cold, "Kill them." The Devouring Spirit clan could target him, but not Yi Ling. This time, the Devouring Spirit clan had joined hands with the Undead Emperor to target Yi Ling. They had almost killed Yi Ling. How could Yi Xian tolerate this? Moreover, the Devouring Spirit clan would not let him and Yi Ling off. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Yi Ling nodded slightly. "Kill them." As she spoke, she stood up and looked at the Azura spike in her hand. "I have two things to do now. The first is to find the Undead Emperor and those vengeful spirits and evil spirits that have escaped. I once promised my master that I wouldn't let those vengeful spirits and evil spirits escape to bring disaster to the world." Yi Xian asked, "What's the second thing?" Yi Ling said, "Awaken the Azura soul." "Awaken the Azura soul." Shen Xinghe's eyelids twitched. Yi Xian did not know how terrifying the Azura spike was. But they did. If the Azura soul in the Azura spike was awakened, the Azura spike would instantly surpass Heaven Blade and Heaven Measuring Ruler. And with Yi Ling's terrifying strength, it was scary just thinking about it. Yi Ling looked at the horizon and said softly, "From now on, my Azura clan's Azura Iron Cavalry will be under your command. Other than them, the Azura Kingdom has 12 Azura Death Guards. I've already ordered them to hurry back. When they return, they will look for you and you will command them. As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian. Be careful of the devouring spirit clan. I will find you after I am done. As she spoke, she turned into a dim light and disappeared into the horizon. After Yi Ling left, the commander of the Azura cavalry suddenly came before Yi Xian and knelt on one knee. Subordinate Yi Qiu greets young Master Yi. The Azura cavalry behind him also knelt down. Yi Xian said softly, "Rise." All the Azura cavalry stood up. After the battle with the devouring spirit clan, there were only 79 Azura cavalry left. They had lost 21 people. As if he had thought of something, he suddenly looked at Shen Xinghe. Old Shen, as far as I know, our talismans can be infused into weapons, right? Shen Xinghe nodded. Yes. But we are not good at it. Only the crafting sect can do it. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, how about this? We will draw a batch of perfect orange talismans and ask the crafting sect to infuse them into weapons. Shen Xinghe glanced at the Azura cavalry. For them? Yi Xian nodded. Can we? Shen Xinghe thought for a moment and then said, I have an idea. Not only can we infuse their weapons with talismans, we can also infuse them with perfect orange defensive talismans. Yi Xian said in a low voice, if that's the case, we will need a lot of talismans. Moreover, we may need to forge new equipment for them. Shen Xinghe smiled. We, the Fu Wenzong, may not have much, but we have a lot of money. A lot. Yi Xian. Lu Yong also smiled. Little ancestor, you don't have to worry about that. With the financial resources of the Fu Wenzong, we can arm them to the teeth. Moreover, we can use the best equipment and talismans. Not only that, we can also ask the crafting sect to make them some tailor-made equipment. Apart from that, we can also ask the alchemy sect to make some top-grade pills for them to increase their strength. Yi Xian was a little hesitant. The Azura cavalry were not Fu Wenzong soldiers. Moreover, he had never thought of bringing them to Fu Wenzong and making them part of Fu Wenzong. After all, they were Yi Ling's own people. As if he knew what Yi Xian was thinking, Lu Yong smiled. Little ancestor, don't worry too much. Right now, we are in the same boat as the Shura Empress. We, the Fu Wenzong, will not care about such a small benefit. In fact, Fu Wenzong was very happy at this time. It should be known that although the Fu Wenzong was a big force in the fifth dimension, their own combat power was not enough. Because of Yi Xian, the Fu Wenzong already had many hidden enemies. Now, there was the devouring spirit race. In this case, being able to ally with the Shura Hell was undoubtedly a great thing for Fu Wenzong. The Shura Empress alone was enough to intimidate countless people. Hearing Lu Yong's words, Yi Xian nodded. He looked at Yi Qiu in front of him. Commander Yi, bring everyone from the Shura Hell and follow me to Fu Wenzong. Yi Qiu cupped his fists. Understood. With that, he turned around and left. The Shura Hell did not only have the Shura cavalry. There were also some experts. However, the Shura cavalry was the strongest. At this time, Ah Tian and Ah Di also came in front of Yi Xian. Ah Tian looked at Yi Xian. Master asked us to follow you. Yi Xian nodded. Follow me back to Fu Wenzong. Ah Tian nodded. Okay. They now understood the position of Yi Xian in Yi Ling's heart. Incomparably important. Soon, Yi Xian led everyone back to Fu Wenzong. Banished Immortal City. Somewhere in the city, by a river, Li Mubai walked out of the thatched hut. He sat by the river and took out his fishing rod. Beside him, Li Shijuan stood respectfully. After a long time, the fishing rod in Li Mubai's hand suddenly trembled, but he did not care. Li Shijuan softly said, "Uncle." Li Mubai said, "The devouring spirit race has appeared." Li Shijuan was curious. The devouring spirit race that almost destroyed the entire fifth dimension? Li Mubai nodded. Li Shijuan solemnly said, "They came out to target the Shura Empress. They are very ambitious. However, with their current strength, they should not be able to destroy the entire fifth dimension." Li Mubai shook his head. "You underestimate them." Li Shijuan looked at Li Mubai. "Uncle, please enlighten me." Li Mubai smiled. "Shijuan, do you know why I admire Yi Xian?" Li Shijuan solemnly said, "He is very strong." Li Mubai shook his head. "Shijuan, your talent is not worse than his, and your strength is not much worse than his. However, you are inferior to him in one aspect. Courage and spirit." Li Shijuan was silent. Li Mubai continued, "When he faced me, he was neither servile nor overbearing. When you faced me, you were very respectful, but too respectful, to the point that you lost yourself." Li Shijuan respectfully saluted. "Uncle, I have something to tell you. I want to go out and explore." Li Mubai looked at Li Shijuan. The latter softly said, "Staying by uncle's side, I feel a lot of restrictions. This is not a good thing for me. Therefore, I want to go out and explore. Maybe I will gain something." Li Mubai nodded. "Your idea is very good." As he said this, he looked at the distant horizon and softly said, "Now that the devouring spirit race has reappeared in the world, this world will not be peaceful. Of course, many opportunities will appear along with it. It is a good thing for you to explore." Li Shijuan respectfully saluted. "Uncle, take care." After saying this, he turned and left. At this time, a saber wrapped in white cloth suddenly appeared in front of Li Shijuan. Li Shijuan was stunned. "Uncle, this is the heaven saber." "You, what do you mean?" Li Mubai softly said, "I have been waiting for the right time to give it to you. Now, the time has come." Li Shijuan shook her head. "Uncle, this saber is yours." Li Mubai smiled and said, "Your uncle has not used this kind of external object for many years. This saber is no different from a piece of wood to me, but it is different in your hands. Don't be long-winded. Take it." Li Shijuan did not hesitate anymore. He took the heaven saber and respectfully saluted again. "Uncle, take care." After saying this, he turned and left. After a while, he disappeared from Li Mubai's sight. Li Mubai withdrew his gaze and looked at the river in front of him. At this time, a middle-aged man suddenly appeared beside Li Mubai. The middle-aged man looked at the river and smiled. "Good mood." Li Mubai lightly said, "3 breaths. If you are still standing here, believe me, your head will definitely be separated from your neck." The middle-aged man shook his head and smiled. "You know that you can't kill me." Li Mubai looked at the middle-aged man. "Then try." The middle-aged man smiled and said, "Listen to me. If you are not tempted, then I will leave immediately and not disturb you again." As he spoke, he glanced at the thatched hut and said, "My devouring spirit clan has a mysterious forbidden technique, the soul revival forbidden technique. This forbidden technique has the ability to defy the heavens. So long as one's soul is not destroyed, then one can utilize this forbidden technique to bring someone back to life." The fishing rod in Li Mubai's hand suddenly shattered into nothingness. The middle-aged man smiled and said, "If you are willing, then the experts of my clan can execute this forbidden technique for your beloved right now and bring her back to life." Chapter 9:16. Beside the river, Li Mubai sat quietly for a long time without saying anything. Beside him, the middle-aged man had a slight smile on his face. He did not say anything else and simply waited. The 6 experts were the biggest stumbling block for the devouring spirit clan, but the devouring spirit clan had never thought of eradicating them. Those who could be eradicated must be eradicated, and those who could be roped in must be roped in. Because if all 6 of them became enemies with the devouring spirit clan, the devouring spirit clan would not be able to bear it. Just then, Li Mubai suddenly shook his head. I want her to live, but she certainly doesn't want me to become someone else's slave. The middle-aged man immediately said, twice. As he spoke, he looked at Li Mubai. Help my clan twice. After these 2 times, we are even. Li Mubai looked at the middle-aged man, who said with a smile, of course, if you are still unwilling, it doesn't matter. The devouring spirit clan does not want to be enemies with you. By the river, Li Mubai was lost in thought. The middle-aged man said again, the sooner we save her, the greater the hope. At this time, the fishing rod in Li Mubai's hand suddenly trembled. The fish took the bait. However, Li Mubai still did not move. Fu Wenzong. After returning to Fu Wenzong with the Azura clan experts, Yi Xian immediately began to draw talismans. Because some experts had come to Fu Wenzong for the bounty he had issued before. These people were not weak, and they were willing to fight for him on the premise that he needed talismans. He did not need to draw the perfect orange talisman. Some top rune masters in Fu Wenzong could draw it. He mainly needed to draw the 7-color talismans because he was the only one who could draw the 7-color talismans. And all the rune masters in Fu Wenzong were also drawing talismans crazily. Now, it could be said that Fu Wenzong was going to arm the Azura cavalry to the teeth. About 5 days later, Yi Xian left his hut. At this moment, he looked tired and a little pale. At this time, Shen Xinghe hurriedly came to him. Little Grand Master, are you all right? Yi Xian shook his head. He opened his palm, in which there were 3 7-color talismans. In these 5 days, he had drawn a total of 3 7-colored talismans. It wasn't that he didn't want to draw more, it was just that drawing these 7-colored talismans was too mentally taxing. Moreover, drawing the 7-color talisman required one more thing, and that was materials. It required far too many precious materials. Fortunately, Fu Wenzong was filthy rich. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to draw a single one of them. As if he had thought of something, Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm and the primal chaos qi appeared in his hand. Shen Xinghe's expression instantly changed when he saw the primal chaos qi. Chaos qi. This was the most important thing in drawing the 7-colored talisman. Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings, and then he said softly, Old Shen, I want this strand of chaotic energy to grow in our Fu Wenzong, so that everyone can absorb it. Upon hearing this, Shen Xinghe was stunned. In the next moment, he hurriedly shook his head. Absolutely not. This is yours, Yi Xian shook his head. With the primal chaos qi, all of you will have a chance to draw the 7-colored talisman as well. As for the others in the sect, they will have a greater chance of drawing the perfect talisman. Of course, this strand of chaotic energy is still young, and it can't be absorbed without restraint. So, we need to nurture it and turn it into a spiritual vein of chaotic energy. Only then will it be able to benefit our Fu Wenzong for generations to come. Shen Xinghe had a rather complicated expression on his face. Needless to say, he was feeling very complicated at this moment because he hadn't expected that Yi Xian would hand over the primal chaos qi. After all, this strand of chaotic energy could be said to be the last strand of chaotic energy in the entire 5th dimension. Its preciousness couldn't be measured by anything. At this moment, he recalled Lu Yong's words. Yi Xian wasn't an ingrate. If Fu Wenzong treated him well, he would definitely treat Fu Wenzong well. Shen Xinghe collected his thoughts and looked at Yi Xian. Little ancestor, if you hand over the primal chaos qi, what will happen to you? Yi Xian smiled. My body is now filled with primal chaos qi. Upon hearing this, Shen Xinghe understood. The primal chaos qi had stayed in Yi Xian's body for a long time. It could be said that Yi Xian's body was equivalent to the primal chaos qi. Of course, losing the primal chaos qi would also affect him. For example, if he left Fu Wenzong, although he could still draw the seven-colored talisman, he wouldn't be able to use it as freely as before. However, he didn't regret it. If others treated him with kindness, he would definitely treat them with kindness. The moment the primal chaos qi appeared in Fu Wenzong, the entire Fu Wenzong was in an uproar. Fu Wenzong was very rich, but he couldn't buy the primal chaos qi. It was also because of the primal chaos qi that many powerhouses in Fu Wenzong were unable to draw the seven-colored talisman and regretted it for the rest of their lives. Now, Fu Wenzong had the primal chaos qi. It wouldn't be long before Fu Wenzong's overall strength would make a huge leap. When they learned that the primal chaos qi was contributed by Yi Xian, some of the elders in Fu Wenzong had mixed feelings. Of course, most of them felt gratified and happy. They treated Yi Xian as one of them, and Yi Xian also treated himself as a part of Fu Wenzong. In the beginning, they were worried because Yi Xian had come to Fu Wenzong halfway. They were afraid that Yi Xian would not have a sense of belonging to Fu Wenzong. But looking at it now, they were worried for nothing. After bidding farewell to Shen Xinghe, Yi Xian went to Anlanxiu and Lian Wanli's courtyard. The two women were in closed-door cultivation at this moment. Meanwhile, Lu Yong appeared by Yi Xian's side, and Lu Yong said in a light voice, "They're really extraordinary geniuses." Yi Xian smiled and said, "What?" Lu Yong said, "They improved too quickly. The two of them have already reached the yin-yang realm not long ago. If they come out of closed-door cultivation this time, they'll probably reach the life and death realm." Life and death realm. Yi Xian was visibly moved. Even though he had already reached the life and death realm, it was because he relied on his bloodline and devoured the devouring spirit clan's sword. On the other hand, Anlanxiu and Lian Wanli did not have any great fortuitous encounters. These two women had truly relied on their own talent. In terms of talent, the two women were really not inferior to him. Of course, it couldn't do without Fu Wenzong's support. One had to know that in Fu Wenzong, the two women could get almost anything they wanted. Without Fu Wenzong's support, the two women wouldn't have been able to improve so quickly. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian asked again, "What about Shao Qi?" Lu Yong said solemnly, "She's even more terrifying. She has now reached the life and death realm, and her sword Dao seems to be breaking through." Sword Dao breakthrough. Yi Xian was a little shocked. Sword Dao breakthrough, the realms of Sword Dao were simple, void, true, bright, break, and mortal. And in the four-dimensional universe, Shao Qi's Sword Dao realm had already broken through. Now that she had broken through, could it be that she was going to reach the legendary mortal realm? Mortal realm. His current realm was just breaking through, so he had to work hard. Yi Xian did not disturb the three women and was about to leave. At this moment, Xiaoling suddenly appeared in front of him. Xiaoling blinked and then opened her small hand. In her hand was a golden core. Core. Yi Xian was stunned. At this moment, Lu Yong said in shock, This is the legendary Meru golden core." Xiaoling looked at Lu Yong and quickly nodded. Seeing this, Lu Yong gulped and his hands trembled. This really is a Meru golden core?" Yi Xian hurriedly asked. "Senior, is this Sumeru golden elixir very precious?" Quote, Lu Yong smiled bitterly. "It's not just precious, it's very, very precious. It's not any less precious than the seven-colored talisman. Moreover, it's been thousands of years since anyone in the alchemy sect has refined such a high-grade pill." Hearing this, Yi Xian was shocked. "So precious?" Lu Yong nodded. "Very precious. This pill is called Meru Golden Core. It has a very, very heaven-defying effect. After swallowing this pill, one can obtain the power of Meru within, and this power of Meru. Speaking up to here, he looked at Yi Xian. This power of Meru is a very mysterious power. As for its real use, I don't know either. However, Miss Lian Qian beside you should know. At this time, Lian Qian suddenly appeared beside Yi Xian. She looked at the golden core and said softly, Xiao Ling, refined it. Xiao Ling, smiled proudly. She was very happy. Lian Qian gently rubbed Xiao Ling, small head and said, Meru is a kind of energy substance. In the past, Master studied it. He once said that a small Meru can contain thousands of universes. Yi Xian frowned. So mysterious? Lian Qian shook her head. Master never speaks carelessly. In order to enter the fourth dimension, one must grasp the power of Meru. Only by grasping the power of Meru can one truly enter the legendary fourth dimension. Of course, some people can use special methods to enter the fourth dimension. However, they can only enter it temporarily. Moreover, it's very different from actually entering the fourth dimension. As she spoke, she picked up the golden core and said softly, if you swallow this golden core, you'll obtain some power of Meru. At that time, you can rely on this power to temporarily enter the fourth dimension. Of course, it won't be for too long. Moreover, a golden core can only allow you to enter the fourth dimension once. Also, this Jindan is much more precious than your seven-colored talisman, because in order to refine this Sumra Jindan, one must possess a profound qi that is even stronger than this Sumra power. Even the primal chaos qi cannot refine this kind of divine pellet. As she spoke, she looked at Xiao Linger. Little guy, what kind of qi did you use to refine it? Yi Xian and Lu Yong also looked at Xiao Linger. Xiao Linger opened her palm and a wisp of purple qi appeared in her hand. Purple qi. Lu Yong's expression instantly turned solemn. What kind of qi is this? Xiao Linger said in a crisp voice, for me. Lu Yong frowned slightly. Just as he was about to speak, Yi Xian suddenly said, it's a furry white little guy. Elder Lu probably doesn't know him. Lu Yong nodded slightly and didn't say anything. He looked at the wisp of purple qi with eyes full of curiosity. Yi Xian looked at Xiao Linger and smiled. Do you still have this qi? Xiao Linger blinked and then nodded. Yes. Yi Xian walked up to Xiao Linger and squatted down. He said softly, did you specially refine this for me? Xiao Linger nodded. Yes. Yi Xian felt a surge of warmth in his heart. He held Xiao Linger's little hand and said softly, thank you. Xiao Linger hesitated and then said, can I call you brother? Yi Xian laughed. Of course you can. Xiao Linger smiled sweetly. Brother. P.S. I'm sending a red packet to everyone. Remember to collect it. Big red packet. Chapter 9:17. Big Brother. In Xiao Linger's heart, she had always regarded Yi Xian as her big brother. Xiao Linger was not a human, so she was very distrustful of humans. Of course, Yi Xian was not an exception. Because after being together with Yi Xian for so long, she had already regarded Yi Xian as her closest relative. Moreover, she also hoped to call Yi Xian big brother like Yi Ling did. There was no reason, it was just a pure wish. When Yi Xian agreed, she was very happy. Yi Xian picked up Xiao Linger and gently kissed her forehead. He was also very happy, but of course, he was even more distressed. During this period of time, this little guy must have suffered a lot in the world prison pagoda. Thinking of this, Yi Xian grabbed Xiao Linger's small hand and softly said, don't work too hard, okay? Xiao Linger blinked her eyes and said, help you. Yi Xian smiled and said, "You can help big brother, but you can't be too tired, okay?" Xiao Ling nodded her small head, then suddenly leaned on Yi Xian's shoulder and yawned, "I want to sleep." Saying this, she slowly closed her eyes. In order to refine this summer pill, she had not rested for a very long time. Yi Xian was somewhat distressed. This little guy must be very tired. He gently hugged Yi Ling and did not disturb this little guy. Just like this, Xiao Ling fell asleep on Yi Xian's shoulder. On the side, Lu Yong looked at Xiao Ling with a strange expression. Yi Xian was a divine talisman master, and now there was such a monstrous alchemy genius. The status of the alchemy sect in the fifth dimension was not lower than that of Fu Wenzong. Furthermore, if the alchemy sect were to find out about Xiao Linger's existence, they would definitely go crazy. After a while, Yi Xian released Xiao Linger back into the world prison pagoda. As if he had thought of something, Yi Xian walked up to the 9th floor. He had always been curious about the identity of the 9th floor. To be locked in the 9th floor, he was definitely not an ordinary person. In front of the 9th pagoda, Yi Xian asked softly, "Senior?" No response. Yi Xian was about to leave and a voice sounded from behind the door. "What's the matter?" Yi Xian stopped and said with a smile, "Senior, can you come out?" The 9th replied, "Not yet." Yi Xian was silent. The person on the 9th floor suddenly said, "Don't worry, I don't have any enmity towards you, and I won't steal your Xiao Ta." Yi Xian was a little surprised. "Why?" The 9th house replied, "Because you have too many backers. I can't beat them." Yi Xian, the person on the 9th floor suddenly said, "I have a small suggestion." Yi Xian said, "Senior, please say it." The person on the 9th floor said, "You have many backers, but that doesn't mean you are absolutely safe. Especially now, you are facing the Devouring Soul clan. This clan is far stronger than you can imagine." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Senior, do you understand the Devouring Soul clan?" The person on the 9th floor said, "Very much. After all, I have had many dealings with them. I can only tell you that they are not simple. If it weren't for the Prophet, the Devouring Soul clan would be the only ones left in the fifth dimension." Yi Xian asked, "Can they beat the plain-dressed woman?" The person on the 9th floor was silent for a while, then said, "If you continue to chat like this, then I won't continue." Yi Xian smiled, "I'm just curious." The person on the 9th floor said, "The strength of the plain-dressed woman behind you has always been a mystery. However, the Devouring Soul clan is not weak. In the past, they were the #1 clan in the fifth dimension. Although they were seriously injured by the Prophet, as far as I know, their core experts still exist. Now that the Prophet has disappeared and they have reappeared, the fifth dimension will face another calamity." Yi Xian shook his head and sighed, "The Prophet is too kind." The person on the 9th floor said, "It is not that he is kind. You should know that he wanted to destroy the entire Devouring Soul clan because the threat of this clan was too great. However, at that time, the Devouring Soul clan had a population of over 100 million. If he asked you to kill 100 million, including the old and the young, would you be able to do it?" Yi Xian said indifferently, "If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, however many there are, I will kill them all." The person on the 9th floor sighed, "Young man, it is not a bad thing to have a benevolent heart. Just like you, if you didn't have a benevolent heart to save that little alchemy girl, how could you have obtained a divine item like the summer pill? There is also your sister, Yi Ling. If you didn't treat her with sincerity, treating her more important than your own life, would the Shura Empress call you brother? Humans are born with good nature. Of course, it is accompanied by evil. Everything has two sides, and everything you do has a cause. This is a good deed, and in the future, it may lead to good results. What you do is evil, and in the future, it may lead to evil results. Yi Xian said, Senior, there are many times when we don't have good results when we do good deeds. Isn't that right? The person on the 9th floor said, This is uncertainty, and it is also a wonderful thing about this world. Everything seems to be predetermined, but in reality, it is not. The ending is not predetermined. For example, an ordinary person may not be born well, but that doesn't mean he can't change his fate. What I want to tell you is that you were able to safely reach this point not because you are ruthless, but because you planted good karma, and now you have reaped good results. Karma. Yi Xian shook his head. These two words were too mysterious. As if he had thought of something, Yi Xian looked in front of him. Senior, you are an extraordinary person in the 5th dimension, right? The person on the 9th floor smiled. I am just a nobody, not worth mentioning. Yi Xian shook his head. Like hell I'll believe you. However, he didn't ask any more questions. He cupped his fists and left. As soon as he left the prison pagoda, 12 powerhouses in black armor with blades in their hands suddenly appeared before him. The 12 Shura death guards. These 12 people were even stronger than the Shura iron cavalry, and they were the super elites of the Shura kingdom. When the 12 of them saw Yi Xian, they all knelt on one knee. They didn't dare act rashly in front of Yi Xian because they knew how important Yi Xian was to the Shura empress. Yi Xian sized up the 12 people. Then he said, From now on, you will follow me and wait for my orders. The 12 nodded in unison, understood. Yi Xian looked up at the horizon, in the direction of the Devouring Spirit clan. He knew that the Devouring Spirit clan would make a big move soon. A moment later, Yi Xian turned around and left, returning to his room. In the room, Yi Xian took out all of his treasures in one go. Executing Heaven Sword, Soul-Suppressing Sword, All-Heaven Brush, Myriad Dimensional Mirror, Book Realm, and the Void Spirit Seal that Li Mubai gave him. These were the treasures he could use at the moment. As for the Immortal Slaying Sword Gourd, they were already outdated. A moment later, Yi Xian put away all his treasures. He opened his palm and the prison pagoda appeared in his hand. Looking at the prison pagoda in his hand, Yi Xian fell into silence. Hand over the pagoda? If it was before, he wouldn't be greedy for this treasure. But now, he wouldn't casually give this Xiao Ta away. Because Xiao Ta treated him as a friend. Dao laws. I must return all the Dao laws. Yi Xian was about to speak when Lian Qian suddenly said, I know what you're thinking. Yanjia and you have found Big Sister, but the whereabouts of the other Dao laws are still unknown. Your top priority now isn't the Dao laws, because they might not necessarily listen to your orders. What you need to do now is to let the tiny pagoda recover its spiritual intelligence completely. If it can, it'll be of great help to you. Moreover, the gathering of the 9 Dao laws will require the cooperation of the tiny pagoda in order to unleash its true power. But Xiao Ta doesn't have the ability to utilize the 9 Dao laws yet. Yi Xian said in a low voice, How can I let it recover completely? Lian Qian said, The Academy. Yi Xian frowned slightly. The Worldwide Academy? Lian Qian nodded. There's a sacred place in the Worldwide Academy called the Ocean of Learning. It can only be restored by placing it in the deepest part of the Ocean of Learning. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, I'll go look for Zhang Wenxiu. As soon as he finished speaking, he put the pagoda away and left Fu Wenzong. Yi Xian had just left the strategist sect when an old man suddenly appeared in front of him. Yi Xian sized the old man up and said, And you are? The old man bowed slightly. Old man. The sect master of the strategist sect, Xian Tiance. The strategist sect. It was the sect master of the strategist sect who'd helped the Worldwide Academy's dean, Chen Tian, put a bounty on Yi Ling's head. Yi Xian shook his head. I don't. Xian Tiance spoke in a low voice, Divine Sage Yi, I have some information that might be helpful to you. Yi Xian sized Xian Tiance up and asked, what information? Xian Tiance spoke in a low voice, according to my investigations, the devouring spirit race has been to Immortal Banished City. Immortal Banished City. Yi Xian frowned slightly. They've gone to look for Li Mubai? Xian Tiance nodded. Not only have they gone to look for Li Mubai, but they've also gone to the Endless Lands. The Endless Lands? Yi Xian was slightly puzzled. What's that place? Xian Tiance spoke in a low voice, the Endless Lands are located at the end of the south. There's a primeval race there. The primeval race. Yi Xian said, Sir, please tell me more. At this moment, Lian Qian appeared by Yi Xian's side. She glanced at Xian Tiance and said, let me explain. The primeval race was once an extraordinary race. In the years after the devouring spirit race vanished, 3 extraordinary races emerged, and the primeval race was one of them. Besides the primeval race, there was also the evil spirit race and the mysterious martial race. When you were still alive, the Worldwide Academy was the #1 power in the world. Besides the Worldwide Academy, there were these 3 races, the Zen sect, the Pope, and the mysterious martial kingdom. Yi Xian asked, the Zen sect? The Pope? The martial kingdom? Lian Qian nodded, these 2 sects are very mysterious. Back then, before Master appeared, they were already around. Moreover, their disciples were spread all over the world, and they were extremely powerful. However, after Master appeared, they completely hid themselves and slowly disappeared from the eyes of the world. As for the martial kingdom, they were from the same era as the Azura kingdom. In the past, there were 2 extremely powerful cavalry forces. They were the Azura cavalry and the God-burying cavalry. As for the God-burying cavalry, they were the cavalry of the martial kingdom. As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian. The Azura cavalry is ranked 2nd, and the God-burying cavalry is ranked 1st. Yi Xian said in a soft voice, they are a bit stronger than the Azura cavalry. Lian Qian shook her head. It's not just a bit stronger, it's much, much stronger. It can be said that 10 God-burying cavalrymen are able to sweep away the entire Azura army. In the past, the reason that the Azura king killed so many people to practice his evil cultivation technique was because the threat that the martial kingdom posed to the Azura kingdom was far, far too great. In that era, no one could compete with the God-burying cavalry. Yi Xian asked, then why hasn't there been any movement from them? Lian Qian fell silent for a moment before she said, because they've been suppressed by Master. Back then, anyone who was unwilling to reason with Master was basically suppressed. Yi Xian was speechless. Chapter 9:18. Domineering. This was Yi Xian's first impression. Strength. I have strength. If I want to reason, everyone in the world has to reason with me. On the contrary, if I don't have strength, even if I have reason, who would be willing to reason with me? Zhang Wenxiu saw this very clearly. Back then, the Worldwide Academy established the order of the 5-dimensional universe, not because the Prophet was reasonable, but because he was powerful. Now that the Prophet had disappeared, who would be willing to reason with the Worldwide Academy? The core of reason was the fist. Thinking of this, Yi Xian looked at the executing heaven sword in his hand. At this moment, he thought of the woman in the plain dress. The woman who was so powerful that she was unreasonable. Reason? He had never seen the woman in the plain dress reason with anyone. Her sword was reason, and with one strike, everything was fleeting. Of course, this was because she had strength. To put it crudely, this was like the secular world. Rich people's farts were fragrant. Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts and looked at Xian Tiance in front of him. Why did you come to tell me this? Xian Tiance bowed respectfully. Divine Master Yi, to tell you the truth, because of the old man's stupid action, my strategist sect was destroyed. I want Divine Master Yi to help me rebuild the strategist sect. Yi Xian was silent. Xian Tiance bowed again. If Divine Master Yi is willing to help, the old man and the entire strategist sect are willing to work hard. Yi Xian said, I can help you rebuild the strategist sect, but for now, you can only hide in the dark. Is that okay? Xian Tiance naturally understood what Yi Xian meant. Yi Xian wanted them to hide in the dark and serve him alone. Xian Tiance hesitated. At this time, Yi Xian said, Don't worry, in the future, I will do my best to help your strategist sect and make you a great sect. Xian Tiance looked at Yi Xian. Divine Master Yi, the Shura Empress, Yi Xian said with a smile, I am her brother. What I say is what she says. Brother. Xian Tiance's eyelids twitched. He had guessed that the Shura Empress was Yi Xian's sister. Sure enough, the Shura Empress was Yi Xian's sister. Without thinking too much, Xian Tiance said, Our heavenly strategy sect is willing to serve Divine Master Yi. Yi Xian nodded. From now on, help me collect useful information. Also, keep a close eye on the Devouring Spirit clan. Xian Tiance said solemnly, We need money. Very straightforward. Yi Xian nodded. Ask Fu Wenzong for reimbursement. Xian Tiance glanced at Yi Xian. Understood. Fu Wenzong was one of the wealthiest sects in the world. Xian Tiance bowed slightly to Yi Xian and then turned to leave. Since the destruction of Fu Wenzong, he had always wanted to rebuild Fu Wenzong. He knew that Yi Xian was his chance, so he had been searching for some useful information for Yi Xian. His purpose was very simple. He wanted to find a backer, and this backer was Yi Xian. To be precise, it was Yi Ling. He valued Yi Ling more. After all, Yi Ling was one of the 6 great experts in the world. With Yi Ling's protection, the Heavenly Strategy sect would definitely regain its former glory. As for revenge, he never thought about it because his strength did not allow him to think about it. After parting with Xian Tiance, Yi Xian went directly to the Worldwide Academy. Repairing the prison tower was what he needed to do now. As soon as he arrived at the Worldwide Academy, Yi Xian once again met an old acquaintance. Lin Xiaoshu. One of the 6 headmasters of the Worldwide Academy. Yi Xian laughed and said, So it's Headmaster Lin. I haven't seen you for a long time. Headmaster Lin, you're even more spirited. Lin Xiaoshu glanced at Yi Xian and turned to leave without saying anything. He did not cause trouble for Yi Xian because it was meaningless. Zhang Wenxiu was in charge of the academy now. To be honest, compared to the headmaster, he was more afraid of Zhang Wenxiu. This woman would not care about anything when she was ruthless. Moreover, he was clearly aware of the current situation, and it was that the Myriad Dimension Academy had to join forces with Yi Xian. Yi Xian arrived at Zhang Wenxiu's courtyard. At this moment, Zhang Wenxiu was in her room. Just as he was about to walk over, a black-robed elder suddenly appeared in front of him. Divine Master Yi, please wait for a moment. Yi Xian nodded. All right. With that, he retreated to the side. The black-robed elder glanced at Yi Xian and did not speak. Yi Xian glanced around and said, Senior, as far as I know, the academy has 6 headmasters. Now, it seems that there are only 4 of them. Where are the other 2? The black-robed elder was about to speak when the door behind him suddenly opened. Zhang Wenxiu walked out. Today, Zhang Wenxiu had changed into a simple, tight black dress. Her hair was tied up into a ponytail, and she looked much more heroic than before. Seeing Zhang Wenxiu come out, the black-robed elder retreated. Zhang Wenxiu walked in front of Yi Xian and said calmly, Why are you asking about them? Yi Xian smiled. Isn't this a critical moment? I think you should call them back. Zhang Wenxiu turned to look at the black-robed elder. Do you have any news about them? The black-robed elder nodded. Yes. Headmaster Zhang and Headmaster Su said that they will return after finishing their business. Zhang Wenxiu said, what about Chen Yimeng? The black-robed elder said, still searching. Zhang Wenxiu nodded. We must find him. Tell him that if he doesn't return, I will revoke his student status and expel him from the academy. I will keep my word. The black-robed elder glanced at Zhang Wenxiu and hesitated. This, Zhang Wenxiu said, do as I say. The black-robed elder nodded. Yes. Zhang Wenxiu said again, what about that woman? Headmaster. The black-robed elder shook his head. There's no news about her. Zhang Wenxiu's face turned cold. How long is this woman going to play around? Yi Xian was speechless. The black-robed elder said, Headmaster might be busy with something important. Zhang Wenxiu sneered. Something important? What could she be busy with? This woman is very lazy. The black-robed elder didn't say anything else. This wasn't something he could interrupt. At this moment, Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. What are you doing here? Yi Xian said in a low voice. Miss Wenxiu, I hope you can help me restore the prison pagoda. Zhang Wenxiu opened his palm. Yi Xian pointed and the prison pagoda fell into Zhang Wenxiu's hand. After sizing up the world prison pagoda, Zhang Wenxiu furrowed her brows. Who was it that injured this small pagoda so badly? The prison pagoda trembled slightly as if it was saying something. A swordsman? Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. Was it done by the woman behind you? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Zhang Wenxiu said softly, amazing. After saying that, she was silent for a moment. To restore this pagoda, we have to bring it to the depths of the ocean of learning and use the talent qi there to restore its spirit. Yi Xian frowned. Talent qi? Zhang Wenxiu nodded. The aura of talent. Countless auras of talent have gathered in the depths of the sea of learning. Back then, little pagoda was born there. Now, if we want it to completely recover, we have to bring it to that place. She looked at Yi Xian. Let me tell you, this Xiao Ta used to be very rebellious. Except for teacher, it didn't recognize anyone. Even teacher couldn't order it around. Once it recovers, you might not be able to control it. At this moment, the prison pagoda suddenly trembled violently as if expressing something. Zhang Wenxiu suddenly slapped the prison pagoda. Shut up. The prison pagoda immediately became obedient. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, help it recover. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. Are you sure? Yi Xian nodded. I'm sure. Zhang Wenxiu said, once it recovers, this pagoda might not be under your control. At that time, you might lose it completely. Yi Xian smiled. I have never treated it as my personal property. After it recovers, if it doesn't want to follow me, I won't force it. It's fine as long as it doesn't choose to be my enemy. Even if it chooses to be my enemy, I won't regret it because it has helped me enough. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. You have a good attitude. After saying that, she returned the prison pagoda to Yi Xian. Yi Xian said, Miss Wenxiu, why don't we just open the world dimensional library? This was his idea. The school had the library and he had the pagoda. As long as they cooperated, opening the library was a piece of cake. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. And then? Yi Xian was silent. Zhang Wenxiu said, unless there's something in the library that makes us invincible on the spot, opening the library is courting death. Not to mention now, even if Headmaster and the Empress were here, they wouldn't be able to protect this library. Don't look down on those who haven't shown themselves. When teacher was here, they didn't dare to show themselves, but that doesn't mean they're weak. Now that teacher is gone, they definitely won't allow our worldwide academy to dominate. Once the library is opened, it will be our time of death. Yi Xian said in a low voice, then what should we do? Do we just drag it out like this? Zhang Wenxiu said softly, we can only drag it out. We have no other choice. Because once the library is opened, all the forces in the fifth dimension will focus their attention on it. Don't underestimate their greed. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. Zhang Wenxiu stood up. Let's go. Follow me to Xuehai. After saying that, she turned and left. Yi Xian hurriedly took the prison pagoda and followed. In the fourth dimension. In the fourth dimension, somewhere in the vast starry sky, a woman in a plain dress walked slowly in the starry sky. She just walked slowly. Around her, there were countless invisible karma lines. Some of the karma lines were cut off with a swing of her sword. However, she didn't forcibly cut off some karma lines. Instead, she stopped and observed them carefully. Actually, at her level, she could completely avoid all karma lines. However, most of these karma lines were related to Yi Xian. At this moment, the woman in the plain dress suddenly stopped. Not far from her, a middle-aged man walked over. This person was the former headmaster of the Worldwide Academy, Chen Tian. Chen Tian walked to a place not far from the woman in the plain dress. He looked at her and said, I've been looking for you for a long time. The woman in the plain dress didn't say anything. Chen Tian said again, I want to see how strong you are. I hope you won't disappoint me. As soon as he finished speaking, a powerful force suddenly swept out from his body. P.S. Sword Domain and Venerable Swordsman's exclusive peripheral gifts are being ordered. If you want them, you can follow the public account, Green Phoenix Peak. You can directly search the public account, Green Phoenix Peak. Chapter 919. In the starry sky, as soon as Chen Tian's aura appeared, the entire starry sky boiled. This starry sky could not withstand his power at all. Chen Tian knew that the woman in front of him was very strong. Therefore, he did not hold back. Soon, the surrounding starry sky began to crack. In the distance, the plain-dressed woman's expression was calm. There was no fluctuation in her eyes. Chen Tian stared at the plain-dressed woman. He suddenly disappeared from where he stood. A powerful force swept across the field. When this force was about 10 feet away from the plain-dressed woman, it suddenly disappeared. Double-dimensional space. This was his limit. He did not hold back in this attack. He did not dare to hold back because he knew that the woman in front of him was very strong. And he wanted to know how strong she was. At this moment, the plain-dressed woman, who had been silent, gently stomped her right foot. Boom! In an instant, the starry sky within a radius of hundreds of thousands of feet turned into nothingness. The starry sky returned to silence. At this time, Chen Tian had already retreated hundreds of feet away. His eyes were dull. Aren't you a swordsman? In the distance, the plain-dressed woman was expressionless. How can an ant like you be worthy of my sword? With that, she turned and walked into the distance. Behind her, Chen Tian began to disappear bit by bit. Chen Tian looked at the silhouette of the plain-dressed woman at the end of the starry sky. At this moment, his heart was filled with sorrow. In the eyes of others, he was actually an ant. He did not even have the right to be drawn. What a tragedy. At this moment, he knew that Zhang Wenxiu's decision was right. Why did he fight to the death with Yi Xian? Why? Why did he fight to the death with Yi Xian in the first place? Was it not good to be alive? At this moment, he wanted to curse at Yi Xian. If you have such a powerful backer, why don't you tell me? If you tell me, why did I come looking for trouble again and again? Soon, Chen Tian completely disappeared from the silent starry sky. He didn't leave peacefully, nor did he feel at ease. He left with endless unwillingness and regret. In the distance, at the end of the starry sky, the woman in the simple dress walked forward slowly. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something. She looked up, and when she did, she saw the fifth dimension. Her lips curled up into a smile that caused the entire starry sky to lose color. The plainly dressed woman looked at fifth dimension and said indifferently, "With you here, this world is a little more pleasing to the eye." After saying that, she continued to walk into the distance. Very soon, more and more karmic threads that were invisible to the naked eye extended towards her. Fifth Dimension, Worldwide Academy. Yi Xian and Zhang Wenxiu arrived at an ocean. This was the Worldwide Academy's Ocean of Learning, a place created by the Prophet. Soon, the two of them arrived at the center of the Ocean of Learning. Zhang Wenxiu pointed into the distance. "Throw it down." Yi Xian nodded. He took out the World Prison Pagoda. He looked at the World Prison Pagoda in his hand. The World Prison Pagoda trembled slightly, as though it was trying to express something. Yi Xian chuckled and said, "Restore your original appearance." After saying that, he opened his palm and the World Prison Pagoda fell into the depths of the ocean. Yi Xian was about to speak when Zhang Wenxiu suddenly raised her head and looked at the horizon. She glanced at the horizon and sneered. "Don't worry. We're not going to open the study room." Yi Xian looked at the horizon. He could feel some obscure and powerful auras. Someone was coming. Yi Xian looked at Zhang Wenxiu. "Who are they?" Zhang Wenxiu said indifferently, "There are all kinds of people. There are also people from the Devouring Spirit clan." Yi Xian said solemnly, "Kill them." Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. "Go and do it. I'll cheer for you." Yi Xian said seriously, "Miss Wenxiu, this is the Worldwide Academy. How can you tolerate them acting so unscrupulously in your academy? They have no respect for your academy at all." Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. "Don't you think I, Zhang Wenxiu, look like an idiot?" Yi Xian smiled sheepishly. "What are you saying, Miss Wenxiu?" Zhang Wenxiu said coldly, "Yi Xian, the Azura Hell is on the same boat as you, Fu Wenzong, and the Worldwide Academy. This chapter is not finished. Please continue to the next page. Don't play these stupid games. Understand?" Yi Xian said seriously, "I understand. I won't make such jokes next time." Zhang Wenxiu looked up at the horizon and said softly, "Back then, when teacher was still around, who dared to treat the Worldwide Academy like this?" Yi Xian was silent. He had not lived through the era of the Prophet, but he could imagine how powerful the Worldwide Academy was at that time. Now that the Prophet had disappeared, the Worldwide Academy was no longer as powerful as it used to be. At this time, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly said, "Be careful." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "You mean, someone might steal the tower?" Zhang Wenxiu nodded. "Not only that, you have to be careful of that Xiao Ta. Once it completely regains its spiritual intelligence, it may not be the Xiao Ta you know anymore." Yi Xian hesitated and then said, "Was it very arrogant before?" Zhang Wenxiu said calmly, "It has the right to be arrogant, especially when it is one with those few Taoist laws. Even the headmaster is not sure that he can defeat it. And if it activates the 9 Taoist laws, even the headmaster has to step aside." Saying that, she paused and then said, "Whether it really recognizes you as its master or not will depend on later." Yi Xian nodded and looked into the depths of the sea of knowledge. He was already mentally prepared. If Xiao Ta was willing to stay, it would be his fortune. If not, it did not matter. At this time, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly said, "What plans do you have next?" Yi Xian suddenly said, Miss Wuxia, among the primordial race, the evil spirit race, the foreign races, and the Wu kingdom, who do you think we have a chance to rope in? Zhang Wuxia shook her head. You can't rope in anyone. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. Why? Zhang Wuxia said softly, they are all existences that teacher once suppressed. To tell you the truth, if it were not for the formation that teacher left behind and the headmaster, the academy would have died 100 times over. Chen Tian is stupid. He can't see through this, so he targeted you. Yi Xian said in a low voice, if you say that, then our current situation is very bad. Zhang Wuxia said, if I'm not wrong, as long as the spirit-devouring race is not stupid, they will definitely join forces with these forces and the other few of the 6 powerhouses. At this point, she seemed to think of something, and her pupils suddenly shrank. Their goal is the myriad dimension book house, and to get it, they must break the formation of the academy. In other words, if they make a move, it means that they have a way to deal with the formation of the academy and the headmaster. Yi Xian said in a low voice, when do you think they will make a move? Zhang Wuxia looked up at the sky. It should be soon. Yi Xian was silent. He knew that once the spirit-devouring race made a move, he would also be their target. At this moment, the depths of the ocean of learning suddenly trembled violently, and waves of water rippled in all directions. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and looked at the depths of the ocean of learning, where a huge whirlpool had appeared. Zhang Wuxia said softly, it should be coming out soon. Xiao Ta. Yi Xian looked at the whirlpool and couldn't help but ponder. Is this Xiao Ta still the Xiao Ta I know? At this moment, Xiao Ta suddenly rushed up from the depths of the ocean of learning. Boom! In the sky, a powerful force shook from Xiao Ta's body, and the entire sky directly twisted. At the same time, an invisible pressure shook the surroundings. Yi Xian looked at Xiao Ta. He had to admit that Xiao Ta's aura was much stronger than before. In the sky, Xiao Ta trembled violently. At this moment, an afterimage suddenly rushed toward Xiao Ta. Below, Yi Xian's face changed, and he was about to make a move, but Zhang Wuxia shook his head, no need. Yi Xian stopped and looked at the sky. At this moment, a powerful force suddenly shook from Xiao Ta, and the afterimage was directly shaken away. At this moment, an old man suddenly rushed toward Xiao Ta, and Xiao Ta disappeared. Yi Xian was stunned, and the next moment, his face changed. Xiao Ta had entered the triple-dimensional space. Triple-dimensional space. Only experts of Yi Ling's level could enter this existence. Even Zhang Wuxia could only rely on one thing. This chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page, only some external objects could enter. This small pagoda had easily entered. In the sky, the old man's face also changed. When he reacted, his whole body had already exploded and turned into nothingness. So powerful. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. This Xiao Ta's strength wasn't just an ordinary kind of terrifying. Moreover, this wasn't Xiao Ta's peak. It should be known that when all 9 Dao laws were gathered, that would be Xiao Ta's peak. At this moment, Xiao Ta suddenly arrived above Yi Xian's head. Beside Yi Xian, Zhang Wuxia slowly clenched his right hand, ready to make a move at any time. Xiao Ta suddenly flew in front of Yi Xian. It trembled, then directly turned into a dim light and entered Yi Xian's chest. Yi Xian was stunned. He opened his palm, and the prison pagoda appeared in his palm. The prison pagoda trembled slightly and gently rubbed against his hand. It was very intimate. At the side, Zhang Wuxia took a deep look at Yi Xian. She was extremely shocked. She knew how arrogant this Xiao Ta was. Back then, this stupid pagoda didn't recognize anyone other than the prophet. Yet now, it was so intimate with Yi Xian. This wasn't normal. Yi Xian didn't expect that this Xiao Ta would be even closer to him after it recovered its intelligence. Could he really be the legendary Heaven's chosen one? Yi Xian smiled and kept the prison pagoda. He looked at Zhang Wenxiu. Miss Wenxiu, thank you. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. You're more mysterious than I thought. This Xiao Ta has already recovered, but the Tao laws in the pagoda haven't been gathered. You have to think of a way to gather all the Tao laws and make them work for you. Only then will you be able to unleash the true power of this Xiao Ta. Yi Xian nodded. Understood. Miss Wenxiu, I still have matters to attend to, so I'll be taking my leave. Zhang Wenxiu nodded. Be careful. Yi Xian replied, I understand. Farewell. As soon as he finished speaking, he transformed into a ray of light and vanished into the horizon. Meanwhile, Zhang Wenxiu was about to turn around and leave. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something, and her expression changed. She was about to give chase when a middle-aged man suddenly appeared in front of her. The middle-aged man grinned. Miss Wenxiu, please stop. Zhang Wenxiu stared fixedly at the middle-aged man. You want to kill him? The middle-aged man nodded. Yes. Zhang Wenxiu clenched her right fist. The middle-aged man smiled. Unless Miss Wenxiu activates the formation, otherwise, you won't be able to kill me, and you won't be able to leave the academy. Zhang Wenxiu's expression was gloomy. She didn't attack. After a short while, she looked up into the sky with a trace of worry in her eyes. Somewhere high up in the clouds, Yi Ling, who was hunting vengeful spirits, suddenly stopped. Not too far away from her stood a man in white. Li Mubai. Yi Ling looked at Li Mubai. You turned to the Devouring Spirit clan? Li Mubai shook his head. I helped them twice. That's all. Hearing this, Yi Ling seemed to think of something. Her pupils suddenly shrank. You can't kill me. You're here to stop me. You want to kill him. Li Mubai nodded. Yi Ling suddenly roared, you all deserve to die. The next moment, she rushed directly toward Li Mubai. In the distance, Li Mubai also disappeared. A white light flashed in the field. Fu Wenzong. On this day, dozens of mysterious killers suddenly rushed into Fu Wenzong and began to assassinate people in Fu Wenzong. Fu Wenzong was shocked. After killing someone, these assassins would retreat, but not long after, they would appear again. In the Rune Palace, Shen Xinghe's face was gloomy. What do they mean? After a moment of silence, Lu Yong seemed to think of something. He said in horror, they are restraining us. Little Grandmaster is in danger. Hearing this, Shen Xinghe's face changed dramatically. Contact Little Grandmaster. Lu Yong hurriedly crushed a voice-transmitting talisman. But soon, his face turned pale. Shen Xinghe looked at Lu Yong. Lu Yong said in a trembling voice, the space in Fu Wenzong has been sealed. We can't contact Little Grandmaster. Shen Xinghe was stunned and then sat down in a chair. End of this chapter. Chapter 920. About an hour after Yi Xian left the Worldwide Academy, he was on his way back to Fu Wenzong when he suddenly stopped. Not far in front of him stood a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man wore a black robe, had long hair, and carried a zither on his back. Yi Xian glanced around and then opened his palm. A voice-transmitting talisman broke. Soon, he frowned because the voice-transmitting talisman did not send any message. Yi Xian crushed another 2 voice-transmitting talismans, but nothing happened. Yi Xian's face darkened. Yi Ling could not be contacted. Zhang Wenxiu could not be contacted. Fu Wenzong could not be contacted. The Devouring Spirit clan was going to attack him. What should I do? Yi Xian calmed down. He looked at the middle-aged man and said with a smile, "Are you alone?" The middle-aged man shook his head, "More than one." As his voice fell, the space around him suddenly trembled. Soon, light curtains suddenly appeared around Yi Xian. These light curtains directly locked the space around Yi Xian. At the same time, behind the middle-aged man, 4 white-robed old men appeared. Outside those light curtains, there was a group of experts wearing white armor and holding long spears. These people's aura locked onto Yi Xian. They were going to besiege him. Yi Xian nodded slightly, "More?" The man with the zither looked at Yi Xian, "Is it not enough?" Yi Xian smiled, "I'm afraid it's not enough." The man with the zither shook his head, "We value you enough." As his voice fell, the zither behind him suddenly trembled slightly. The next moment, a green light flashed like a blade and slashed at Yi Xian. Seeing this green light, Yi Xian's pupils shrank. So strong. The person in front of him was only slightly weaker than Zhang Wenxiu. Yi Xian didn't use his body to block it. He opened his palm and the prison pagoda appeared in his hand. Boom! The green light was directly blocked by the World Prison Pagoda, and the World Prison Pagoda was not damaged at all. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. Boundless sword. This time, Yi Xian didn't kill. Instead, he escaped. With so many people here, he naturally would not choose to fight head-on. Although there was a barrier seal around him, they had overlooked one thing: he had Lian Qian and the Space Dao Law. Sealing barrier? Wasn't that just a joke in front of Lian Qian? Space blockade? Could it seal the Dao Law of space? The moment Yi Xian disappeared, the expression of the man with the zither on his back changed. Stop him. As soon as he finished speaking, the barrier of light in the surroundings suddenly trembled. However, right at this moment, the barrier of light suddenly split apart, and the sealing technique contained within the barrier of light had completely vanished as well. A ray of light flashed in the distant horizon. The man with the zither on his back didn't give chase. Instead, he raised his head and looked towards the horizon. In the horizon, a star had silently appeared at an unknown time, and a beam of light shot down from the star and illuminated the horizon in the distance. That just happened to be where Yi Xian was. Yi Xian was stunned when he was illuminated by the starlight. What the hell is that? He didn't dare think too much about it and raised his speed to its limits. He wanted to flee now. He wanted to flee back to the Worldwide Academy. However, the starlight was like maggots in one's bones, and it shone on him tightly. Right at this moment, a woman suddenly appeared not too far away from him. She wore white armor, had long hair tied into a ponytail, and had a sheathed saber hanging behind her waist. The woman looked at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian looked at her as well. Both of their expressions were extremely calm. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly drew his sword and slashed. A boundless sword. Yi Xian didn't hold back. He knew that since she dared to obstruct him, then she was definitely not trash. Suddenly, the woman closed her eyes. When Yi Xian's sword was around 3 m away from her, she suddenly grabbed the hilt of her saber with her right hand. Instant. The moment the saber was drawn, the surroundings suddenly slowed down, and even time seemed to have slowed down at this moment. It wasn't slow. It was the woman's saber that was swift to the extreme. Bang! Yi Xian instantly retreated. This time, he retreated 1,000 feet. And as soon as he stopped, the clothes in front of his chest directly split open. The skin from his eyebrows to his abdomen directly split open, and blood splattered everywhere. Yi Xian looked up at the woman, his expression incomparably solemn. What a fast saber! This was the fastest saber he had ever seen, and this saber had almost taken his life. If it weren't for the fact that his physical body was strong enough, and if it weren't for his fast reflexes, this saber would have dismembered him. At this time, the man with the zither had arrived, and Yi Xian was once again surrounded. Yi Xian wiped the blood off his face, and soon, his body began to recover. The man with the zither glanced at Yi Xian, then at the woman with the saber not far away. He nodded slightly, Miss Wu. Wu Shengnan. At this time, Xian Tian's voice suddenly rang out in Yi Xian's mind, Divine Master Yi, don't be careless. This woman is the most monstrous genius in Wu country. She reached the Heaven's Fate realm a few years ago, and her saber path has even entered the first layer of the mortal saber realm. She is known as the most monstrous genius in Wu country in the last 10,000 years, and now she is the commander of the undead cavalry. Also, rumor has it that Li Mubai wanted to take her as a disciple, but she rejected him. She said that no one in this world is qualified to be her master. Wu Shengnan. Yi Xian looked at the woman in front of him. Although they had only exchanged one move, he had already tasted her power. Reality proved that the younger generation of the fifth dimension was not weak, it was just that Yi Xian had not met them yet. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and sent a voice transmission, Can you contact the academy and my sister? Xian Tian's replied, The Empress is being held back, and the academy is also being held back. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression sank. He could only rely on himself. In the distance, Wu Shengnan suddenly said, I will fight him. The man with the zither on his back hesitated. Wu Shengnan looked at the man with the zither, Is there a problem? The man with the zither said in a deep voice, It's best if we kill him in one strike. Wu Shengnan ignored the zither man and looked at Yi Xian, Fight me. After saying this, she slowly walked towards Yi Xian. Her right hand was on the hilt of her saber, and she walked very slowly, as if she was taking a stroll. There was not the slightest energy fluctuation around her. In the distance, Yi Xian's left thumb suddenly flicked up. Qi. The executing heaven sword flew out. Boundless sword. The sword was like lightning, disappearing in the blink of an eye. In the distance, Wu Shengnan suddenly pulled out her saber and slashed. This slash directly struck the tip of Yi Xian's sword. Bang! The executing heaven sword flew back, but at this time, Yi Xian appeared in front of Wu Shengnan. He reached out with the executing heaven sword and slashed at Wu Shengnan. Wu Shengnan raised her saber to block, but at this moment, Yi Xian's executing heaven sword turned into a heavy sword, and at this moment, Yi Xian's sword seed's power suddenly soared. Not only that, but the heavy sword also had a extinguished character spirit. The sword smashed down. Bang! Wu Shengnan took a step back, and the space around them directly exploded. At this time, Wu Shengnan suddenly slashed forward with her saber, taking advantage of the momentum to slash at Yi Xian. Yi Xian sheathed his sword to block. Bang! Yi Xian was instantly sent flying, but the moment he was sent flying, the heavy sword in his hand suddenly disappeared and was replaced by the executing heaven sword. The executing heaven sword turned into a flying sword and slashed at Wu Shengnan. Wu Shengnan took a step forward and slashed out with her saber, then immediately sheathed it. Bang! The celestial sword was directly stopped in place, but at this time, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of her, another heavy sword in his hand. He gripped the heavy sword with both hands and fiercely slashed forward. This slash of the sword had the power to shatter the heavens. Yi Xian's physical strength was extremely strong to begin with, so with this slash of his sword, the surrounding space couldn't withstand it and began to crack apart. Wu Shengnan's eyebrows slightly furrowed. She suddenly pulled out her saber and slashed horizontally at Yi Xian's abdomen. She didn't defend against Yi Xian's slash because she was very confident in her own saber speed. Yi Xian also didn't retreat to defend, and instead slashed down with his saber. Just as Wu Shengnan's saber was half an inch away from Yi Xian's abdomen, a mysterious power suddenly enveloped Wu Shengnan. Sword domain. This suppression directly forced Wu Shengnan's saber to stop. And Yi Xian's sword fell. Bang! Wu Shengnan instantly retreated a few dozen meters, but Yi Xian also retreated rapidly, and his abdomen was still cut open. It wasn't deep, only an inch deep. But without the suppression of the sword domain, it wouldn't just be an inch deep, half of his body would have been cut open. In the distance, Wu Shengnan looked at Yi Xian with a trace of surprise in her eyes. Domain. Yi Xian looked at Wu Shengnan. He had to admit that this woman was really strong, especially her saber. It was too fast. At this time, the man with the zither suddenly said, "Miss Wu, don't forget our purpose." Wu Shengnan pondered for a moment, and then said, "Take my last saber strike." The man with the zither's face sank. "Miss Wu, exalted Yuan Tian has instructed." Wu Shengnan suddenly looked at the man with the zither. "That's an instruction to your devouring spirit clan." "What, do I have to listen to your devouring spirit clan's orders?" The man with the zither's face was slightly unsightly. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly pointed angrily at the man with the zither. "Your devouring spirit clan is shameless. You don't dare to fight alone, but you won't let others fight alone. Do you think Wu Shengnan is as shameless as you?" As he spoke, he looked at Wu Shengnan. "I've long heard that Miss Wu's saber is unparalleled under the heavens. Today, I, Yi Xian, am able to fight Miss Wu. Even if I die, it will be worth it. Come, Miss Wu, please make your move." "You." Not far away, the man with the zither stared fixedly at Yi Xian. "Yi Xian, don't play any tricks. No one can save you today." Yi Xian spat at the man with the zither. "Bah. Even if I, Yi Xian, die, I will die at the hands of a true expert, not at the hands of a group of despicable villains like you." As he spoke, he looked at Wu Shengnan. "Miss Wu, please make your move. I, Yi Xian, will take your saber." Wu Shengnan sized up Yi Xian and nodded. "You've got guts. If we weren't enemies, I'd be willing to make friends with you." As she spoke, she was about to make her move, but Yi Xian suddenly said, "Miss Wu, if I take your saber, what will you do?" Hearing Wu Shengnan's words, the man with the zither's face suddenly sank. Why did they suddenly feel sympathy for each other? Hearing Yi Xian's words, Wu Shengnan frowned slightly. She hadn't thought about this problem. Yi Xian suddenly said, "Miss Wu, how about this? If I take your saber, you can't attack me again today. If I can't, I'll be buried under your saber. What do you think?" "No." The man with the zither suddenly said, "Miss Wu, you can't agree with him. He has bad intentions." Yi Xian suddenly said, "What, you don't believe in Miss Wu's strength?" The man with the zither glared at Yi Xian, but at this time, Wu Shengnan suddenly said, "I know you're playing tricks, but I promise you. Because killing you today is not in line with my style. If you die with my saber, everything will be over. If you don't die, I won't attack you again today." As she spoke, her right hand grasped the hilt of the long saber at her waist. "Are you ready? P.S. I want to ask for votes, but I don't know how to ask." Chapter 921. Yi Xian held the executing heaven sword in his right hand and nodded. "I'm ready." In the distance, Wu Shengnan nodded slightly. She suddenly drew her saber. The saber slashed out soundlessly, without the slightest fluctuation of energy. Fast. The core of this saber strike was speed. It was fast to the extreme. At the instant that this saber strike appeared, the entire world seemed to slow down. At the instant that Wu Shengnan drew her saber, a mysterious force suddenly appeared around 3 meters in front of Yi Xian. Sword domain. He could have used the World Prison Pagoda to resist Wu Shengnan's saber strike. He knew that Wu Shengnan was very strong, but it was absolutely impossible for her saber strike to break through the World Prison Pagoda. However, he didn't do that. Wu Xingnan had her pride, but so did he, Yi Xian. Amongst the younger generation, who did he, Yi Xian, need to fear? He feared no one. Wasn't it just a single saber strike? At the instant that the sword domain appeared, a saber energy arrived. Chi! A sharp tearing sound resounded. After this extremely fast saber strike entered Yi Xian's sword domain, its speed slowed down at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. It was forcefully suppressed by the sword domain. The saber energy grew slower and slower. However, at this moment, Yi Xian's countenance had turned abnormally pale. The strength of this saber strike was too strong. Even though he'd used the sword domain to suppress this saber energy, he'd endured a great deal of force as well. When the saber energy was half an inch away from his chest, it stopped. Yi Xian raised his head to look at the distant Wu Xingnan. Wu Xingnan spoke softly, "What an impressive sword domain." Yi Xian said, "How about you take a strike from me?" Wu Xingnan nodded, "All right." Yi Xian suddenly vanished. A boundless sword. In the distance, Wu Xingnan drew her saber and slashed. The sword light shattered. However, Yi Xian had vanished. The zither man's expression changed drastically when he saw this scene. "He's fled. Stop him." Wu Xingnan turned her head and looked to her right. At the end of the horizon, she saw Yi Xian. That was because the starlight had been firmly enveloping Yi Xian. At this distance, if she used her saber, she could force Yi Xian to stop. Because Yi Xian wasn't as fast as her. However, she did not draw her saber. Wu Xingnan turned around and left. Seeing this, the zither-wielding man's face darkened. He stood in front of Wu Xingnan and said, "Miss Wu, that Yi Xian is someone from the Azura Divine Kingdom. We are mortal enemies with your Wu country." Wu Xingnan calmly said, "A powerful enemy deserves respect." The zither-wielding man glanced at Wu Xingnan. "Does Miss Wu know how great of a price we paid to kill this man?" "We." Wu Xingnan pointed into the distance. "He has already escaped to the Worldwide Academy. If you go after him now, you should still be able to make it in time." The man with the zither didn't say anything else. He turned around and chased after them. After the zither-wielding man and the others left, an old man suddenly appeared not too far away from Wu Xingnan. The old man bowed slightly and said, "Your Highness." Wu Xingnan said in a light voice, "I said that teacher doesn't need to be so polite in front of me." The old man shook his head. "These are the rules. Without rules, nothing can be accomplished." Wu Xingnan didn't bother about this anymore. She looked up into the sky and said softly, "The devouring spirit race is plotting something big." The old man hesitated for a moment and said, "Your Highness deliberately let Yi Xian go?" Wu Xingnan nodded. The old man smiled and said, "Why?" Wu Xingnan said in a light voice, "Li Mubai can't kill the Empress. If I kill Yi Xian, then the Empress will surely retaliate against my Wu country. Although my Wu country isn't afraid of her, there is no need for us to do so. Because if the Empress retaliates against my Wu country, then the devouring spirit race will be the happiest." The old man nodded. This time, the devouring spirit race said that their goal is that study house. But from the looks of it, their plan is far more than that. As he said this, he looked in the direction of the Worldwide Academy with a complicated look in his eyes. In the past, who dared to despise the Worldwide Academy? But now, the devouring spirit race is openly targeting that study house. Wu Xingnan said, "Prosperity leads to decline." The old man nodded. "Although the academy is not as good as it used to be, I think the devouring spirit race won't dare to destroy the Worldwide Academy. After all, the headmaster is still there, and there is a great array in the academy. Great slaying array. The first array of the five-dimensional universe. Even the 6 super powerhouses of the present world wouldn't dare to say that they could withstand this slash, because it was left by the prophet. Wu Xingnan looked in the direction of the Worldwide Academy and said softly, "We can't let the Shura country rise, and we can't let Yi Xian and the Worldwide Academy open that study house. But, we can't let the devouring spirit race use us as a tool. Sit on top of the mountain and watch the tigers fight." The old man nodded, "I understand. But, what if the devouring spirit race really destroys the academy and Yi Xian?" Wu Xingnan said softly, "If they can kill the Shura Empress and the headmaster, and break that great array, then the ones who will die will be us. Teacher, use all the forces of our country to investigate the devouring spirit race. I want to know how many powerhouses they left behind. We must find out their true strength." The old man nodded slightly and left quietly. Wu Xingnan turned and left. The direction she was walking in was the direction of the Worldwide Academy. Yi Xian ran all the way, and soon, he returned to the Worldwide Academy. He could only return to the Worldwide Academy, because he was too far away from Fu Wenzong. When he returned to the Worldwide Academy, Yi Xian's face darkened. At this moment, above the academy, a middle-aged man was confronting Zhang Wenxiu. When he saw Yi Xian, Zhang Wenxiu's face darkened. It was not a good thing to see Yi Xian in the Worldwide Academy at this time. Yi Xian glanced at the middle-aged man, then looked at Zhang Wenxiu, and grinned, "Miss Wenxiu, I want to read." Zhang Wenxiu was expressionless. "Can't you just say that you are being hunted and want to find a place to take refuge?" Yi Xian, not far away, the middle-aged man looked at Yi Xian, "I didn't expect you to escape." Yi Xian smiled, disappointed. The middle-aged man shook his head and smiled, a little bit. At this time, the man with the zither and the devouring spirit race experts appeared in the sky above the Worldwide Academy. The experts of the Worldwide Academy also appeared, but they were far inferior to the devouring spirit race in terms of quality and quantity. The main reason was that some of the experts of the Worldwide Academy did not come back. In the sky, the middle-aged man looked at Zhang Wenxiu and smiled, "Miss Wenxiu, we only have one goal today, and that is to kill this Yi Xian. If you don't attack, we will leave immediately after killing him. We will keep our word." Zhang Wenxiu smiled, "Yuan Sheng, can't you use your brain? If you kill him, won't the Worldwide Academy be next? Can you not make me think that the devouring spirit race is a group of retards?" Yi Xian suddenly gave a thumbs up, "Good scolding. Good scolding, good scolding." Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian coldly, "You shut up." Yi Xian quickly shut up. He could see that this woman was in a bad mood, so it was better not to provoke her. After all, he had nowhere to go now, so he could only stay in the Worldwide Academy. In the sky, the middle-aged man named Yuan Sheng suddenly smiled, "Since Miss Wenxiu wants to protect this Yi Xian, then the devouring spirit race will offend you today." As his voice fell, four white-robed old men appeared behind him, and no one knew what they were saying. Soon, the sky suddenly darkened, and in the depths of the starry sky, 7 stars suddenly appeared. Array! Yi Xian's face changed. The devouring spirit race has a lot of arrays. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian asked, "Miss Lian Qian, do you have any Tao principles related to arrays?" Lian Qian said, "Yes." Yi Xian quickly asked, "Who?" Lian Qian said, "The 8th floor. She is very good at arrays. Half of the big arrays in the academy were completed by her. She is very powerful." Yi Xian asked, "Where is she now?" Lian Qian said, "I don't know." Yi Xian was speechless. At this time, in the starry sky, 7 bright starlight beams suddenly burst out from the 7 stars. These 7 light beams fell straight down from the starry sky, and a powerful pressure directly enveloped the entire Worldwide Academy. Yi Xian's face changed. "This array is stronger than I thought." Yi Xian looked at Zhang Wenxiu not far away, but Zhang Wenxiu was expressionless. Go out. Boom. In the depths of the academy below, a golden ancient book suddenly flew out. In the sky, the golden ancient book suddenly flipped open, and tiny golden ancient characters flew out ceaselessly from its pages. In an instant, these golden ancient characters formed numerous thick golden shields that blocked the sky above the Myriad Dimension Academy. At this time, the starlight fell. Rumble, rumble, rumble. In the sky above the entire Myriad Dimension Academy, numerous explosions resounded incessantly, and the golden shield started to tremble violently. Gradually, the golden shield actually started to crack. Seeing this, the faces of countless worldwide academy experts suddenly changed. The array was about to break. At this time, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly looked at Yi Xian. Give me the heaven punishment brush. Yi Xian did not hesitate and directly handed the heaven punishment brush to Zhang Wenxiu. As soon as Zhang Wenxiu grasped the heaven punishment brush, the golden shield in the sky exploded. At this time, 7 beams of starlight fell straight down, and Zhang Wenxiu suddenly swung the brush. Defend! Boom! An enormous black shield suddenly stretched across the sky above the entire Myriad Dimension Academy, and when the 7 rays of starlight descended onto the enormous black shield, it trembled violently before directly cracking apart. However, in the next moment, 7 rays of dazzling starlight suddenly erupted from the enormous black shield, and these 7 rays of starlight shot into the sky and shot into the depths of the starry sky before finally blasting onto the 7 stars. Rumble. The 7 stars shook violently, but they did not disappear. At this time, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly shot up into the sky, and in her hand, a lightning spear quietly condensed. In the distance, Yuan Sheng suddenly said, "Stop her." As soon as he finished speaking, the man with the zither appeared in front of Zhang Wenxiu. He strummed the zither with both hands, and strands of strange energy surged like waves towards Zhang Wenxiu. A ferocious smile curled up the corners of Zhang Wenxiu's mouth. She swung her spear, and a wave of lightning shook out. Bang! The strange energy vanished without a trace. At the same time, Yuan Sheng was blasted back. Zhang Wenxiu looked at the nearest star. She was about to swing her spear when the 7 stars suddenly shook violently. In the next moment, 7 beams of starlight shot out from the depths of the starry sky, and their target was Zhang Wenxiu. Zhang Wenxiu's expression changed when she saw this, and she swung her spear again. Rumble. Zhang Wenxiu fell from the sky, and it didn't take long for her to fall into the worldwide academy. Zhang Wenxiu raised her head and looked over. In the sky, the 7 stars had suddenly converged together and transformed into a star sword. At the instant this sword appeared, the entire starry sky started to seethe, and the space in the sky above the Myriad Dimension Academy instantly became illusory. It couldn't withstand the power of this sword of stars. Zhang Wenxiu's expression turned ferocious, and she was about to attack again. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly sent her a voice transmission. Let me do it, let me do it, let me do it. Zhang Wenxiu. Chapter 922. A Sword. Yi Xian seethed with excitement when he saw the stellar sword. This sword was very powerful, because it contained extremely pure star power. If he could absorb it, then it would simply be a great tonic to him. Yi Xian didn't hesitate to charge forward. At this moment, he'd raised his speed to its limits. Yuan Sheng seemed to have thought of something, and his expression changed drastically. This isn't good. He can devour swords. Quickly withdraw the formation. Withdraw the formation. At this moment, the 4 white-robed old men behind Yuan Sheng suddenly recovered from their shock. Yi Xian can devour swords. The 4 were about to leave the formation. However, at this moment, Yi Xian had already dashed up to the star sword. The sword also fell straight down and then pierced into his head. Bang! A powerful aura suddenly erupted from within Yi Xian, and the starry sky in the surrounding started seething as soon as this aura appeared. Yuan Sheng's expression became extremely unsightly when he witnessed this scene. What sort of freak is this? A sword devourer? I've never encountered such a situation. Most importantly, the stellar sword was condensed from a formation, and it was extremely formidable. Yet Yi Xian can devour it as well? Zhang Wenxiu had a slightly strange expression on her face as well. Even she was slightly fearful of the formidable energy contained within the sword. However, Yi Xian had actually directly devoured it. What a freak! Zhang Wenxiu shook her head. Needless to say, Yi Xian was very mysterious. After Yi Xian devoured the sword, a powerful strand of energy erupted from within him, and he felt like his body was on the verge of exploding. The energy contained within the sword was too terrifying. Yi Xian hurriedly gazed at Zhang Wenxiu. "Help me." As soon as he finished speaking, he entered the academy, sat down cross-legged, and started devouring the energy like a madman. He had to absorb the energy or he would explode. Suddenly, Yuan Sheng said, "Don't let him absorb the energy." After saying that, he directly rushed towards Yi Xian below. Next to Yi Xian, Zhang Wenxiu was expressionless. The spear in her hand suddenly turned into a bolt of lightning and flew out. Boom! Yuan Sheng was pushed back by Zhang Wenxiu's spear, and at this moment, the four old men behind Yuan Sheng suddenly appeared above Zhang Wenxiu's head. Zhang Wenxiu frowned. "It's you four old farts again." She knew that these four people were array masters of the Devouring Spirit clan. They were the ones who arranged and operated the various array masters of the Devouring Spirit clan. The four white-robed old men ignored Zhang Wenxiu. They formed a series of hand seals and quickly chanted. Soon, blood-red chains appeared around Zhang Wenxiu. These chains were like a cage that locked the space around Zhang Wenxiu. Zhang Wenxiu's expression turned sinister as he swept his spear horizontally. Boom! A bolt of lightning suddenly erupted in the space around her, and the blood-red chains trembled. However, these blood-red chains weren't destroyed by her spear. Zhang Wenxiu's mouth curled into a sinister smile. She suddenly rushed forward and stabbed with her spear. Boom! The space in front of her exploded, but the blood-red chains didn't disappear. They locked the space around her. "I'm trapped." Zhang Wenxiu's expression was gloomy. She waved her spear again. This time, she didn't hold back. As soon as the spear was swung, countless tiny cracks appeared on the blood-red chains. At this moment, one of the white-robed old men suddenly looked at Yuan Sheng who was nearby. "Kill Yi Xian first. Kill Yi Xian." Yuan Sheng and the man with the zither charged directly at Yi Xian. This chapter is not over, please continue to the next page. The experts of the Myriad Dimension Academy charged out successively as well. Amongst them, Lin Xiaoshu directly stood in front of the man with the zither. He flipped open an ancient book and muttered a few words, and then a formidable force suddenly swept out from the ancient book. The man with the zither didn't dare to be careless. He quickly took out his zither and began to play with it. Rumble! A series of explosions rang out in the sky. Yuan Sheng charged towards Yi Xian. At this moment, no one in the Worldwide Academy could stop him. Just as he was about 5 feet away from Yi Xian, a Xiao Ta suddenly flew out from between Yi Xian's eyebrows. The Xiao Ta charged directly towards Yuan Sheng. Yuan Sheng's expression changed and he raised his arm to block it. Boom! Yuan Sheng was instantly pushed back. When Yuan Sheng stopped, he frowned. This Xiao Ta's power had exceeded his expectations. In the sky, the Xiao Ta trembled. Yuan Sheng looked at the Xiao Ta with a trace of seriousness in his eyes. At this moment, an old man in a white robe suddenly roared, "Don't waste time. We can't trap her for long." Yuan Sheng withdrew his thoughts and looked up into the sky. "Restrain the pagoda." As soon as he finished speaking, an old man in linen suddenly appeared in the sky. The old man suddenly slammed his fist towards the World Prison Pagoda. The World Prison Pagoda didn't dodge. Instead, it collided directly with the old man. At this moment, Yuan Sheng stomped his right foot and transformed into a black ray of light that charged towards Yi Xian. "I'll kill Yi Xian first." In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. A moment later, he drew the executing heaven sword and slashed forward. Boom! This slash caused the space in front of him to explode, and Yuan Sheng instantly retreated hundreds of feet away. Yi Xian's right hand gripped the executing heaven sword tightly. Around him, a powerful aura constantly vibrated in all directions. Everywhere this aura passed, the space fluctuated violently like boiling water. Yuan Sheng looked at Yi Xian and narrowed his eyes. "How did you suddenly become so strong?" Yi Xian took a deep breath. At this moment, he felt that his body was filled with endless power. He knew that this was brought about by the astral sword. He had to absorb this power. Otherwise, it would slowly disappear. Yi Xian looked at Zhang Wenxiu on the other side. At this moment, Zhang Wenxiu was still trapped. Yi Xian suddenly vanished. At the instant that Yi Xian vanished, Yuan Sheng vanished as well. Obviously, he didn't want Yi Xian to help Zhang Wenxiu. Indeed, if Zhang Wenxiu were to escape, then no ordinary person would be able to stop her. Her strength was merely inferior to the 6 great experts. When he saw Yuan Sheng charging over, Yi Xian slashed with his sword. The boundless sword. The executing heaven sword had the word "exterminate" on it. When the sword slashed down, Yuan Sheng's expression suddenly changed. He suddenly clasped his hands together and all the spiritual energy within a radius of 10,000 feet was instantly sucked dry. Then, a spiritual energy shield quietly condensed in his hands. Yi Xian's sword slashed down. Bang! The spirit energy shield shook violently, and then both of them retreated explosively. As they retreated, the executing heaven sword in Yi Xian's hand suddenly transformed into a ray of light that shot forward. In the distance, Yuan Sheng's lips curled into a ferocious smile. He clenched his right hand into a fist and punched out. Rumble! As he punched out, a powerful spiritual chi fist print swept out from his fist. Bang! The spirit energy fist and Yi Xian's ray of light exploded at the same time. However, Yi Xian had already rushed to where Zhang Wenxiu was. With a wave of his right hand, the executing heaven sword flew into his hand. In the next moment, he held the sword and slashed forward. At the instant that Yi Xian attacked with his sword, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly attacked with his spear. The spear was like a bolt of lightning. If this chapter is not complete, please continue to the next page, Inside and Outside. Bang! The spear stabbed out, and the sword fell. The iron chains that bound Zhang Wenxiu suddenly trembled and then exploded. Zhang Wenxiu had escaped. Yi Xian hurriedly said, "Miss Wenxiu, please block it for me for an hour." With that, he sat cross-legged on the ground and began to devour the energy in his body. Zhang Wenxiu glanced at Yi Xian. "Can I not block it?" Yi Xian was speechless. Zhang Wenxiu turned to look at Yuan Sheng. "Do you still want to fight?" Yuan Sheng was silent. At this moment, a man suddenly appeared in front of Yuan Sheng. Seeing this man, Zhang Wenxiu's eyes narrowed. Very strong. Although it was just a glance, she could feel that this man's strength was not inferior to hers. The man smiled. "I'm Yuan Ji of the Devouring Spirit Clan. Miss Wenxiu, for the sake of the Prophet, I can give you one last chance." If you don't care about this, I can promise you that we will only target Yi Xian today. We won't touch a single person of the Worldwide Academy. Zhang Wenxiu turned to look at Yi Xian. Did you hear that? They are targeting you. Yi Xian's face darkened. This woman can't be tempted, can she? At this moment, Zhang Wenxiu looked at the man and smiled. First, my Worldwide Academy is now in an alliance with Yi Xian, the Shura Empress, and Fu Wenzong. If I give up on Yi Xian today, Fu Wenzong and the Shura Empress won't let my Worldwide Academy off. Second, Yi Xian has the key, and that study is in my academy. If you kill Yi Xian, who will be your next target? Even a pig's brain knows that your next target is my Worldwide Academy. If I give up on him now, it's the same as cutting off an arm. Do you think I'm stupid? Yuan Ji smiled. Miss Wenxiu, we don't have to be enemies, do we? Zhang Wenxiu smiled. I understand. If we don't want to be enemies, there's only one way. That is to give up the worldwide study, right? Yuan Ji smiled. Miss Wenxiu is a smart person. You should know that the Worldwide Academy isn't the Worldwide Academy it used to be. You don't have the ability to protect that study now. Zhang Wenxiu smiled. That study was left by teacher. Even if all the people in the Worldwide Academy die, we won't hand it over to beg for a living. Yuan Ji was silent for a moment and then nodded. If that's the case, then there's nothing to talk about. Then, he looked at Yi Xian, who was not far away. My devouring spirit clan has been planning to kill him for a long time. If we can't kill him today, it will be a great loss for us. So, he must die today. As soon as he finished speaking, 4 black-robed old men suddenly appeared behind him. These 4 old men were covered in black robes, and their faces couldn't be seen. These 4 people were all at the peak of the Heaven's Secret Realm, and Zhang Wenxiu was also at the peak of the Heaven's Secret Realm. Of course, the Heaven's Secret Realm was also divided into the strong and the weak, and the strong and the weak depended on who could enter the higher dimensional space. However, the aura of these 4 black-robed men was not any weaker than Zhang Wenxiu. On the side, Zhang Wenxiu said softly, "Are we going to do it for real?" She knew that a big clan like the Devouring Spirit Clan had a deep foundation. Now, the Worldwide Academy couldn't compete with them. At this time, Yuan Ji suddenly smiled. Miss Wenxiu, let me see how much your Worldwide Academy is willing to pay to protect Yi Xian. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yuan Ji. You're sure that I won't open that big array, right? Yuan Ji looked at Zhang Wenxiu and said with a smile, if you open it, I will die. However, I can guarantee you that your academy won't live for more than 3 days, even if your headmaster comes back. Miss Wenxiu, do you dare to open that big array? Do you? P.S. It's winter recently. Our chickens only crow at 8 o'clock. I've been getting up late these 2 days. End of this chapter. Chapter 923. Zhang Wenxiu remained silent. The formation was the Worldwide Academy's last trump card. Once it was activated, the Worldwide Academy would lose its last trump card. At that time, the Worldwide Academy would be in even more danger. Should it be used? Of course not. At least, it couldn't be used against a person like Yuan Ji. A person like him wasn't worthy of the Worldwide Academy activating this formation. How could the Worldwide Academy resist Yuan Ji and the others if they didn't use this formation? Apart from Yuan Ji, there were 4 white-robed old men and 4 black-robed old men in the field. The 4 white-robed old men were in charge of the formation, and although the 4 black-robed old men did not make a move, their auras were not any weaker than hers. Of course, if it was a one-on-one battle, she was confident that she could kill any one of them. The problem was that it wasn't the time for a one-on-one battle. Besides these people, there were some experts from the Devouring Soul clan above the Worldwide Academy. Some of them were from the Devouring Soul clan, and some weren't. How should she fight? Zhang Wenxiu remained silent. At this moment, she was in a dilemma. Suddenly, Yuan Ji smiled and said, "Attack." As soon as he finished speaking, the four white-robed old men behind him suddenly formed seals. In next to no time, the space in the surroundings started trembling, and then the spirit energy in the surroundings suddenly converged towards Zhang Wenxiu like a tidal wave. Obviously, they wanted to hold Zhang Wenxiu back. Zhang Wenxiu clenched her right hand slowly, and her face was extremely gloomy. The Worldwide Academy had never been humiliated like this. Zhang Wenxiu suddenly roared angrily. Her entire body became illusory, and countless lightning bolts surged around her like volcanic eruptions. At the same time, with her as the center, numerous spear shadows shot out in all directions. Seeing this, the expression of the white-robed old man changed. "All of you, attack quickly. We can hold him back for at most half an hour." "Half an hour?" Yuan Ji nodded slightly. "That's enough." As he spoke, he looked at the four black-robed old men, and the four black-robed old men looked at Yi Xian. A moment later, the four of them suddenly disappeared, and when they reappeared, they were in front of Yi Xian. Four super experts had joined forces. Obviously, they didn't want to give Yi Xian any chance. At this moment, Yi Xian naturally did not dare to devour anymore. He suddenly opened his eyes, and a small pagoda suddenly flew out from between his eyebrows. The prison pagoda. Bang! An explosion resounded like a clap of thunder. Then, Yi Xian and the tower retreated rapidly. Although the World Prison Pagoda had withstood the joint attack of the four people, Yi Xian had still eaten most of the force. When he stopped, he immediately spat out a mouthful of blood essence. That attack just now had ruptured all his internal organs. Right at this moment, the four black-robed old men suddenly vanished. In the distance, Yi Xian's pupils suddenly shrank. At this moment, he did not dare to hold back at all. He suddenly took out a golden pill and swallowed it. Godly Shimi Dan. As soon as this pill was consumed, a powerful force suddenly gathered in Yi Xian's body. At this moment, he felt as if his body was about to combust. Coupled with the fact that he had yet to fully absorb the power of the stars, Yi Xian felt like his body was about to explode. At that moment, he couldn't care less about his own body as he stabbed out with his sword. Chi! The space in front of him suddenly split open. In the next moment, Yi Xian vanished from where he stood, and the four black-robed old men missed their target. In the distance, Ji Yuan was stunned. In the next moment, his expression changed drastically. Four-dimensional spaces. Retreat. As soon as he finished speaking, a beam of sword light suddenly appeared in front of one of the black-robed old men. The black-robed old man's pupils suddenly constricted. This was completely out of his expectations. However, he did not choose to sit still and wait for death. The moment this beam of sword light appeared, he clasped his hands together and a powerful force swept out from his body. Boom! As Yi Xian's sword slashed down, the force released by the black-robed old man disappeared without a trace. The sword fell straight on the black-robed old man's head. Chi! The black-robed old man's body was directly split by Yi Xian's sword. Just as his soul was about to escape, Yi Xian's soul-calming sword directly stabbed into his body. In the blink of an eye, the black-robed old man's soul was completely absorbed. As for the remaining three black-robed old men, they had already retreated hundreds of feet away. At this moment, the three of them had extremely grave expressions. Ji Yuan's face was also full of disbelief as he stared at Yi Xian. How is this possible? How is it possible that you have four-dimensional spaces? Countless experts in the surroundings were also shocked. Four-dimensional spaces. At present, even Zhang Wenxiu could not enter that space. Only powerhouses like Yi Ling could enter that space. And what realm was Yi Xian at? He was only at the life and death realm. A life and death realm expert had actually entered a four-dimensional space. What kind of joke was this? In the distance, Yi Xian held the executing heaven sword in his right hand. His face was very pale, and his hands hidden in his sleeves were trembling. Although he had obtained Sumeru power by relying on the Sumeru pill and then used it to enter the four-dimensional space, with his current strength and physical body, he was not qualified to enter that kind of space, but he had forced his way in. There was a price to pay for forcing his way in. Right now, he felt as if his entire body had been sucked dry. However, he did not dare to show it. After swallowing the spring of life, his expression became much better. He looked at Ji Yuan in the distance and smiled. Surprised? Yuan Ji stared at Yi Xian. How did you do it? Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. Do you want to know my true identity? True identity? Yuan Ji frowned slightly. You have another identity? Yi Xian smiled. Why? Has your devouring spirit clan not investigated me? Yuan Ji was silent. They had naturally investigated Yi Xian. Coming from the four-dimensional universe, he had only started cultivating the sword at the age of 18, but his sword Dao had progressed rapidly. Moreover, there seemed to be a mysterious female swordsman behind him. As for this mysterious female swordsman, they did not have much information about her, nor did they know how strong she was. In short, this Yi Xian was indeed a bit mysterious, especially the relationship between Yi Xian and Shura Empress. They could not understand the relationship between the two. At this moment, seeing that Yi Xian could enter the four-dimensional space, Yuan Ji was really shocked. The four-dimensional space. That kind of unknown space, even he couldn't enter. At this moment, Yi Xian said again, actually, my true identity is, at this moment, a white-robed old man not far away suddenly said, he is stalling for time. Stalling for time. Yuan Ji suddenly came to a realization. This Yi Xian's strength could not reach Yi Ling's level. Moreover, if Yi Xian really had that kind of strength, then he would have already swept away everything. Why would he be so long-winded here? There was only one explanation. Yi Xian must have used some secret method to forcibly enter that space. Backlash. At this moment, Yi Xian must be suffering from the backlash. Yuan Ji looked at Yi Xian and said, attack. The remaining three black-robed old men immediately disappeared. At this moment, Yi Xian once again disappeared from where he was standing. Seeing this scene, the expressions of the three black-robed old men and Yuan Ji changed greatly. The three black-robed old men hurriedly retreated. It must be known that once Yi Xian entered the four-dimensional space, he would absolutely suppress them. No one dared to resist Yi Xian's sword in the four-dimensional space. However, when they retreated, they found that Yi Xian did not appear. Where was Yi Xian? The three old men looked at each other. It was as if Yi Xian had evaporated into thin air. At this moment, a ray of sword light suddenly appeared in the area where Zhang Wenxiu was. The three black-robed old men and Yuan Ji immediately turned to look at where Zhang Wenxiu was. At this moment, a ray of sword light appeared, and one of the white-robed old men was slashed back. As soon as this white-robed old man was slashed back, the formation maintained by the four of them instantly shattered, and Zhang Wenxiu rushed out. As soon as he rushed out, Zhang Wenxiu charged at one of the white-robed old men. At this moment, Zhang Wenxiu was like a madman. Anger. She was really angry. When had the Worldwide Academy been bullied like this? In his rage, Zhang Wenxiu's strength was extraordinary. Wherever his spear passed, the space was turned into nothingness. The expression of the white-robed old man who was targeted by Zhang Wenxiu changed drastically, and he pressed his palms together. Spirit gathering. As soon as he spoke, the spiritual energy around him suddenly converged towards him and formed a thick spiritual energy wall in front of him. A ferocious expression appeared on the corners of Zhang Wenxiu's mouth. Die. As soon as she finished speaking, the spear in her hand suddenly stabbed forward, and with this stab, her lightning spear directly exploded. Bang! The spiritual energy wall turned into ashes. The white-robed old man was shocked, and he was about to retreat when a spear suddenly pierced through his forehead at an extremely fast speed. Hiss! The white-robed old man's eyes opened wide, and his body stiffened. At this moment, Zhang Wenxiu appeared in front of the white-robed old man, and she suddenly pulled out her spear. Hiss! Blood splattered. After pulling out her spear, Zhang Wenxiu swept it horizontally towards the white-robed old man's head. Bang! The white-robed old man's head was sent flying, and fresh blood sprayed out like a fountain. Zhang Wenxiu turned to look at Yi Xian, and at this moment, Yi Xian's face was very pale. At this moment, anyone could see that he was in a bad situation. Yi Xian had no other choice. He knew that he couldn't drag this on any longer, and he could only fight to free Zhang Wenxiu. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. Can you still fight? Yi Xian shook his head. I can't. Zhang Wenxiu asked, how long do you need? Yi Xian said in a low voice, 1 hour. Zhang Wenxiu nodded. I'll buy you 1 hour. Yi Xian looked at Zhang Wenxiu. Are you sure? Zhang Wenxiu shook her head. I'm not sure. Yi Xian was speechless. Zhang Wenxiu turned to look at Yuan Ji and the others, and said softly, hurry up and heal your wounds, leave the rest to me. Yi Xian nodded, and he didn't think any further. He sat down cross-legged and began to heal his wounds. Zhang Wenxiu opened her palm, and a spear suddenly appeared in her hand. Zhang Wenxiu slowly closed her eyes. Teacher, I'm going back on my word. As soon as she finished speaking, her eyes opened abruptly. Hiss! 2 rays of black light suddenly shot out from Zhang Wenxiu's eyes, and at the same time, a black aura suddenly swept out from Zhang Wenxiu's body. In the distance, Yuan Ji's expression changed. Demonization, this is the power of the bloodline. You're a descendant of the ancient demons. Chapter 924. The Ancient Devil Clan. This was a clan that was almost forgotten by people, because this clan had disappeared a long, long time ago. It was a clan that existed even before the Devouring Spirit clan existed. It could be said that very few people in the 5th dimension knew about this clan. It just so happened that the Devouring Spirit clan knew about it. Because the Ancient Devil clan existed before them, and the Devouring Spirit clan had once dispatched numerous experts to search for the ruins of this clan. Devils. It was an ancient and mysterious clan. After many years of investigation, they'd felt that this clan had vanished completely. However, Yuan Ji hadn't imagined that Zhang Wenxiu was actually a member of the Ancient Devil clan. At this moment, Zhang Wenxiu held a black spear in her hand, her golden hair had turned pitch black, and her entire body emanated monstrous devil energy. Moreover, she seemed like a devil god that had descended into the world. Yuan Ji stared fixedly at Zhang Wenxiu, and his eyes were extremely solemn. At this moment, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly disappeared. Hiss! The sound of something tearing apart resounded. Everyone watched as the space in front of Yuan Ji exploded apart inch by inch, and then a black spear stabbed out from within the shattered space towards Yuan Ji. Yuan Ji slowly clenched his right fist, and then a strand of powerful force converged in his fist. A ferocious expression appeared on his face as he smashed his fist forward when the spear arrived in front of him. Bang! The space they resided in was instantly obliterated while Yuan Ji was instantly blasted flying. At the instant that his figure was blasted flying, Zhang Wenxiu's spear stabbed into his fist, and then it pierced through his entire right arm. At the same time, the powerful force of the collision blasted Yuan Ji over 1 kilometer away. He'd been defeated with a single move. The expressions of everyone here changed drastically when they witnessed this scene. How did Zhang Wenxiu suddenly become so strong? Yuan Ji gazed at his right hand, and his pupils constricted when he saw it. He was astounded to the extreme. At this moment, his entire arm and body were actually being corroded at an extremely swift speed. Yuan Ji looked up at Zhang Wenxiu, who stood in the distance. Meanwhile, Zhang Wenxiu waved her right hand, and a black spear suddenly appeared in her grasp. She slowly closed her eyes, and the blood in her entire body was boiling. If one looked closely, one would notice that the blood in her entire body wasn't red, but dark black. The bloodline of the devil race. She was currently using the bloodline of the devil race, the third-ranked bloodline in the five-dimensional universe. It was only inferior to the bloodline of the Heavenly Dragon clan and the legendary mortal bloodline. In fact, even the experts in the academy were slightly shocked because they didn't expect Zhang Wenxiu to have such a powerful bloodline. Besides the prophet, no one else knew about Zhang Wenxiu's true origins. All they knew was that the prophet had brought her here. When she just arrived at the academy, many people didn't like her because she was too arrogant and fought at the slightest disagreement. Moreover, she just so happened to be extremely strong, and besides the master, no one else in the academy was a match for her. Even though Zhang Wenxiu was like a little devil who liked to compete with others, she was extremely knowledgeable in the academy, and she was merely inferior to the master. So, everyone in the academy both hated and respected her. Zhang Wenxiu held the spear tightly in her right hand. At this moment, the bloodline throughout her entire body was boiling like lava, and the strength she emanated was growing stronger and stronger. After she'd activated her bloodline, her strength wasn't inferior to the 6 great experts of the five-dimensional universe. Right at this moment, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly opened her eyes, and she gazed at Yuan Ji, who was still being corroded. The latter's expression changed drastically, and he retreated explosively. Hiss! A ray of black light flashed, and then Yuan Ji stopped on the spot. At this moment, his head had vanished, and there was a figure behind his body. This chapter isn't finished. Please continue to the next page. Zhang Wenxiu. A bloody head was stabbed into the black spear in Zhang Wenxiu's hand. It was Yuan Ji's head. Instant annihilation. The expressions of the experts of the Devouring Spirit clan changed drastically when they witnessed this scene. At this moment, Zhang Wenxiu's strength was exceedingly formidable. Zhang Wenxiu suddenly turned to look at the 3 black-robed old men. At this moment, they were the strongest amongst the 3 black-robed old men. Their expressions instantly changed when they saw Zhang Wenxiu look over. At this moment, they had no choice but to fear Zhang Wenxiu. Zhang Wenxiu suddenly vanished, and so did the 3 black-robed old men. Rumble. An explosion suddenly resounded in the sky above the worldwide academy, and then the 3 black-robed old men were blasted back repeatedly. 1 against 3. Moreover, it was a direct suppression. The 3 black-robed old men could only passively defend themselves. On the ground below, Yi Xian healed himself while absorbing the energy from the stellar sword, and Xiao Ta stood on guard by his side. Xiao Ta was extremely strong now, and ordinary people weren't a match for him. Meanwhile, the man with the zither who was fighting Lin Xiaoshu suddenly stopped. He glanced at the surroundings, and then his gaze descended onto Yi Xian in the end. However, Lin Xiaoshu stood in front of him. The man with the zither gazed at Lin Xiaoshu, according to my knowledge, Yi Xian has killed many members of your academy. Lin Xiaoshu fell silent. The man with the zither continued, you. Lin Xiaoshu suddenly said, I don't like him, but he can't die today. The man with the zither's face darkened, and he turned to look at the three black-robed old men not far away. When he saw the three black-robed old men being crushed by Zhang Wenxiu, his expression became even more unsightly. If this continued, it was highly likely that Zhang Wenxiu would kill the three black-robed old men. Moreover, the battle had dragged on for a long time. If Li Mubai failed to restrain the Shura Empress, the situation would become even more serious. As if thinking of something, the man with the zither suddenly looked up at the sky. Deep in the clouds stood a woman. This woman was Wu Shengnan from the Wu Kingdom. The man with the zither looked at Wu Shengnan, Miss Wu, if we don't kill Yi Xian today, we won't have such a good opportunity in the future. Wu Shengnan said calmly, as far as I know, the devouring spirit clan's Yuan Tian Supreme is no weaker than the 6 great masters. Why don't you let him attack? Yuan Tian Supreme. The man with the zither's face darkened. This time, the devouring spirit clan had not used their full strength to kill Yi Xian. The reason why they had waited until Yi Xian had left the Worldwide Academy was because they were afraid of the Worldwide Academy. After all, the Worldwide Academy not only had the teacher, but it also had a super array. They did not want to fight to the death with the Worldwide Academy. However, they had not expected that Yi Xian would escape back to the academy. This was something they had not expected. If the devouring spirit clan wanted to destroy the academy, they would have to face the teacher and the legendary array. At this moment, the devouring spirit clan did not want to fight to the death with the Worldwide Academy. Even if they won, the price would be great. The best choice was to let Wu Shengnan from the Wu Kingdom and the Divine Burial Cavalry behind her attack. Wu Shengnan glanced at Yi Xian and Zhang Wenxiu, who had activated the power of bloodline, and turned to leave. If she attacked, together with the Divine Burial Cavalry of the Wu Kingdom, she had a high chance of killing Yi Xian. Yi Xian could not stop her and the Divine Burial Cavalry. However, why did she attack? If she were to make a move and force the Myriad Dimension Academy into a hopeless situation, then once the Myriad Dimension Academy activated the Grand Formation or that master suddenly appeared, then at that time, she, the God Burial Cavaliers, and the experts of the Martial Kingdom would absolutely be annihilated. Although the current situation was, this chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page. The Worldwide Academy was not as good as it was in the past, but who dared to look down on it? Just one headmaster was enough to make any force fear him. Wu Shengnan wasn't stupid. She knew that if she made a move, she would become a dowry for the devouring spirit clan. Moreover, if she killed Yi Xian, the Shura Empress would retaliate crazily. Once such a powerhouse retaliated, who could withstand it? Wu Shengnan decisively chose to leave. Because she knew that if she killed Yi Xian now, the price would be very high. Seeing Wu Shengnan leave, the zither man's expression became ugly. Miss Wu, is your Wu Kingdom going to go back on your word? Wu Shengnan suddenly stopped and turned to look at the zither man. Your devouring spirit clan has so many experts, why don't you attack? The zither man said angrily, my devouring spirit clan has not sent enough experts. Wu Shengnan looked at the zither man. You want my Wu Kingdom to face the teacher and the array, and then your devouring spirit clan can sit back and enjoy the fruits of our labor, right? The zither man said in a low voice, Miss Wu, Wu Shengnan suddenly said, how about this, your devouring spirit clan will send people to force them out of the array. As for the teacher, my Wu Kingdom will deal with him. What do you think? The zither man's expression became ugly. Miss Wu, that array is the greatest array in the world. Aren't you sending my devouring spirit clan to our deaths? Wu Shengnan retorted, then aren't you sending me to my death by asking me to act? The zither man wanted to say something, but Wu Shengnan suddenly said, one more word and I will kill you. With that, she turned and left. At this moment, a black-robed old man in the distance was swept away by Zhang Wenxiu's spear. In the process of flying, a long spear instantly pierced his forehead. Blood splattered. Seeing this scene, the zither man's expression changed. He looked up at the clouds in the sky. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded from the clouds, "Retreat! Retreat!" Obviously, the Devouring Spirit clan did not want to fight with the Worldwide Academy. Because the teacher had not appeared yet. Would the teacher not care about the academy? The Devouring Spirit clan did not dare to gamble. Of course, they did not expect that Zhang Wenxiu would be so bold as to protect Yi Xian at all costs. This was completely unexpected. If not for the Worldwide Academy's protection, they could have killed Yi Xian. Soon, the Zither Man and the other Devouring Spirit clan experts retreated. Zhang Wenxiu did not chase after them because she was also a little abnormal at this moment. After the Devouring Spirit clan experts retreated, Zhang Wenxiu looked up at the sky. Devouring Spirit clan, I, Zhang Wenxiu, will remember today's debt. Above the clouds, a chuckle sounded. The Devouring Spirit clan will wait for you to settle the score. Zhang Wenxiu looked coldly at the sky, then turned around and came in front of Yi Xian. Before Yi Xian could react, she grabbed his shoulder and disappeared. The next moment, Zhang Wenxiu came to a secret room with Yi Xian. Zhang Wenxiu spread out her right hand, and Xiao Ta appeared in her hand. She gently wiped her left hand, and Xiao Ta was directly sent to another space. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. At this time, Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. Her clothes suddenly turned to ashes, and she was naked. Yi Xian was completely stunned. Was she going to force herself on him? P.S. I recommend a very good urban novel, also published by Vertical and Horizontal, called Great Country's Famous Chef. Those who like urban novels must read it, don't miss it. I swear, if I update it after 8:00 tomorrow, my testicles will be 10 centimeters shorter. Live broadcast handstand diarrhea, I will do it. End of this chapter. Chapter 925. Needless to say, Yi Xian was dumbfounded at this moment. Why did Zhang Wenxiu take off her clothes at the slightest provocation? What was she trying to do? Yi Xian glanced at Zhang Wenxiu's beautiful body. He had to admit that Zhang Wenxiu was really beautiful, especially when she was naked. As if sensing Zhang Wenxiu's gaze, Yi Xian quickly retracted his gaze and said seriously, "Miss Wenxiu, I'm not a casual person. Don't be like this, I'm really not that kind of person." As he said that, he was already ready to take off his clothes. Zhang Wenxiu suddenly closed her eyes slowly, her voice trembling, "If you talk nonsense again, I'll kill you right now." Yi Xian was speechless. What do you mean by talking nonsense? You're the one who took off your clothes first. Did I think wrongly? At this time, Zhang Wenxiu said again, "My bloodline is the bloodline of the ancient demon clan, it's extremely domineering. Back then, when Master was around, he could use his power to suppress me, but now, no one can suppress my bloodline." Yi Xian said in a low voice, "You don't have to suppress it." Zhang Wenxiu opened her eyes and looked at Yi Xian, "If I don't suppress it, my blood will fill me to death. Because of its strength, I can't subdue it yet, so I can only suppress it." Hearing this, Yi Xian understood. This Zhang Wenxiu's bloodline should be similar to his bloodline, they were both uncontrollable existences. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and then said seriously, "Miss Wenxiu, you want us to balance yin and yang?" Zhang Wenxiu suddenly slapped Yi Xian's head. Smack! What a loud sound. Yi Xian was speechless. Isn't it balance yin and yang? Zhang Wenxiu glared at Yi Xian. Do you believe that I'll cut you up later? Yi Xian immediately felt a chill in his crotch. Needless to say, this woman would definitely dare to do that. Yi Xian said seriously, Miss Wenxiu, just tell me what you want to do. Zhang Wenxiu took a deep breath to calm the rage in her heart, and then she said, my blood is already boiling. There's only a single way to suppress them, and it's to find a bloodline that's even stronger than them to forcefully suppress them. Yi Xian frowned. Miss Wenxiu, are you saying that my bloodline is stronger than yours? Zhang Wenxiu nodded. I don't know the origin of your bloodline, but I can feel that your bloodline is stronger than mine. So, I need your bloodline to suppress mine. Yi Xian said in a low voice, if I activate my bloodline, I won't be able to control it. It'll be very dangerous. Zhang Wenxiu shook his head. You don't need to activate it, you just need to borrow it. Yi Xian was about to speak when he noticed a faint flame suddenly appearing on Zhang Wenxiu's body. The faint flame enveloped Zhang Wenxiu's entire body, and under the cover of the flame, Zhang Wenxiu's body seemed to be burning. It was a terrifying sight. At this moment, he understood why Zhang Wenxiu had to take off her clothes. The flame was too strong. Even if she did not take off her clothes, she would still be burned to ashes. Yi Xian did not waste his breath, and immediately said, what do I need to do? Zhang Wenxiu suddenly grabbed Yi Xian's hand, and her wrist with Yi Xian suddenly split open. The next moment, Yi Xian's blood flowed into her body through her hand. Boom! The moment Yi Xian's blood entered Zhang Wenxiu's body, a strong force suddenly erupted from Zhang Wenxiu's body, and Zhang Wenxiu's black hair began to gradually turn red. She was affected by Yi Xian's bloodline. Zhang Wenxiu slowly closed her eyes. She had to admit that Yi Xian's bloodline was too terrifying. Even she was unable to completely resist that ruthless aura and murderous intent. When Yi Xian's blood entered Zhang Wenxiu's body, the demonic bloodline in her body seemed to be in danger, and it began to resist wildly, wanting to devour Yi Xian's blood. At this moment, Yi Xian's blood boiled. Boom! A blood-red glow directly engulfed Zhang Wenxiu. Zhang Wenxiu frowned, and at this moment, her body began to tremble violently. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Miss Wenxiu. Zhang Wenxiu said, I need more blood. Yi Xian nodded, and he held Zhang Wenxiu's hand. Soon, the blood in his body began to surge towards Zhang Wenxiu, and his face also became pale at this moment. However, at this moment, he could not care so much. He had to do his best to suppress Zhang Wenxiu's bloodline. As more and more blood entered, the demonic bloodline in Zhang Wenxiu's body suddenly became violent. Danger! At this moment, Zhang Wenxiu's brows furrowed even deeper, and her entire face gradually contorted, as if she was suffering a great deal of pain. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Miss Wenxiu, are you all right? Zhang Wenxiu did not answer, and her whole body was trembling. Yi Xian said, do you want me to withdraw my blood? Zhang Wenxiu shook her head, and said in a trembling voice, my bloodline is already afraid, I can hold on for a while. Yi Xian looked at Zhang Wenxiu's body. At this moment, half of her body was black, and the other half was red. However, the red side was slowly spreading to the black side. It was beginning to suppress. In fact, this was his blood entering Zhang Wenxiu's body. If Zhang Wenxiu's blood entered his body, it would be instantly suppressed. After all, his blood and Zhang Wenxiu's body had 0 degree of fusion. Therefore, in Zhang Wenxiu's body, his blood could not cause any suppression to Zhang Wenxiu's blood. However, it was still fine because Zhang Wenxiu's demonic bloodline was obviously not as strong as Yi Xian's bloodline. Zhang Wenxiu's body gradually turned blood red. However, Zhang Wenxiu was feeling a little uncomfortable. This was because at this moment, she was suffering from the backlash of the two bloodlines. Yi Xian quickly took out the spring of life and fed it to Zhang Wenxiu. After drinking the spring of life, Zhang Wenxiu's complexion instantly looked better. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Miss Wuxia, are you all right? Zhang Wuxia did not reply. She grabbed Yi Xian's arm tightly with both hands, and her whole body was still trembling. Boom! At this moment, the demonic bloodline in Zhang Wuxia's body suddenly erupted. Seeing this, Yi Xian's expression changed. At this moment, Zhang Wuxia said in a trembling voice, "It's making its last gamble." Yi Xian said in a low voice, "Can you still hold on?" Just as Zhang Wuxia was about to speak, a blood-red light suddenly swept out from her body. Obviously, Yi Xian's blood had begun to retaliate as well. As Yi Xian's blood retaliated, Zhang Wuxia's entire face immediately contorted. Pain. Just as Yi Xian was about to speak, Zhang Wuxia suddenly hugged him tightly and said in a trembling voice, "What kind of bloodline is this? Why is it so strong that it can actually corrode my mind?" Yi Xian shook his head. "I don't know what kind of bloodline it is." In fact, he did not know much about his own bloodline. In any case, this bloodline was extremely powerful. It was so powerful that sometimes, it almost killed him. Yi Xian collected his thoughts. He carried Zhang Wuxia and placed her on the wooden bed at the side. He took out a robe and covered Zhang Wuxia. However, as soon as the robe was covered, it turned into ashes. Yi Xian frowned. At this moment, Zhang Wuxia suddenly said, "What's wrong? Don't you look good?" Yi Xian looked at Zhang Wuxia. At this moment, Zhang Wuxia was staring at him. One of her eyes was black and the other was red. Obviously, the demonic bloodline had not been completely suppressed. Yi Xian said softly, "Miss Wuxia has the beauty of a celestial being. How can it not be beautiful?" Zhang Wuxia looked straight at Yi Xian and clenched her fists tightly. "Then don't you have any thoughts?" Yi Xian said, "Yes." Facing such a beautiful woman, it was impossible to say that he had no thoughts at all. Moreover, the woman in front of him was currently naked. Not only was Zhang Wuxia hot-tempered, but her beauty was also peerless. Zhang Wuxia looked at Yi Xian without saying a word. Yi Xian smiled, "Miss Wuxia, just because you have some wild thoughts doesn't mean you have to do anything. Moreover, it was because of me that you activated your devil bloodline. At this moment, I am a little daydreaming about you. This is not something I can control, because this is human nature. Moreover, Lady Wuxia is indeed very beautiful. Not to mention me, I believe that no man in this world can ignore Lady Wuxia's beauty. However, if I take advantage of you now, then I am worse than a beast." This was his heartfelt words. He had always believed that people could be shameless and flirtatious, but they could not be vulgar and have no bottom line. Zhang Wuxia glanced at Yi Xian, then slowly closed her eyes. At this moment, her clenched fists also slowly relaxed. The blood-red glow around Zhang Wuxia's body increased. At this time, Yi Xian took out some spring of life and fed it to Zhang Wuxia. About half an hour later, the demonic bloodline in Zhang Wuxia's body gradually subsided. Zhang Wuxia suddenly opened her eyes. Her eyes were bloodshot. At this moment, Yi Xian's demonic bloodline was in her body. Yi Xian was shocked. Zhang Wuxia said with a trembling voice, "Take back the blood." Yi Xian nodded quickly. He placed his right hand on Zhang Wuxia's wrist. Soon, his blood began to return to his body, and he suddenly felt terrible. Yi Xian hurriedly suppressed his bloodline. He did not dare to completely activate his bloodline. When all the blood returned to Yi Xian's body, Zhang Wuxia immediately returned to normal. However, Yi Xian was a little abnormal. Zhang Wuxia quickly placed her right hand on Yi Xian's shoulder. A powerful force surged from her hand, and she began to help Yi Xian suppress the power of his bloodline. However, she found that her strength was not enough to suppress Yi Xian's bloodline at all. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly frowned. His body was turning red at an extremely fast speed, and the demonic bloodline in his body began to become restless. A restless bloodline. Zhang Wenxiu's face darkened when she saw this. She was about to finish speaking when Yi Xian suddenly roared and hugged Zhang Wenxiu. Zhang Wenxiu's expression changed drastically. She was about to resist, but she was shocked to find that she was extremely weak at this moment. She did not have the strength to resist Yi Xian at all. In a moment of desperation, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly grabbed a certain part of Yi Xian's body and said fiercely, "If you dare to act recklessly, I'll castrate you." However, as soon as she touched him, Yi Xian completely lost his mind. His clothes instantly turned to ashes, and in the next moment, Yi Xian directly. Chapter 926. At this moment, Yi Xian had completely lost his mind. Zhang Wenxiu was also at her weakest. She had no strength to resist Yi Xian at all. The moment Yi Xian entered, a low moan suddenly sounded in the room. There was a hint of pain in the voice. Lifting her jade-like feet and stroking her jade-like buttocks, one moving and one still, she entered the clouds. Her eyes blurred and her body gradually trembled. Each wave was higher than the last. Everyone said that longevity was good, but how could it be better than a room in the mortal world? Half an acre of green field opened up once he entered. This place was not accessible to outsiders. About 2 hours later, the red glow on Yi Xian's body gradually subsided. Another hour passed. Yi Xian, who was lying on the bed, suddenly opened his eyes. As if he had thought of something, he suddenly looked down at his lower body. There was a spot of blood blooming like a plum blossom. Yi Xian frowned. "I'm bleeding." As if something had occurred to him, Yi Xian slapped himself hard in the mouth. At this moment, he thought of many things. It's over. That was Yi Xian's first thought. After a moment, Yi Xian shook his head. He looked around. Zhang Wenxiu was no longer there. She didn't kill me. Yi Xian thought about it, then put on his clothes and walked out. At this moment, the worldwide academy had returned to peace. However, the academy was still in a mess. Many of the buildings had been destroyed. At this moment, a black-robed elder suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. The black-robed elder opened his palm and the prison pagoda appeared in his hand. He handed the prison pagoda to Yi Xian. "Master Yi, Hierarch Wenxiu asked me to give this to you." Yi Xian took the prison pagoda and asked, "Where's Miss Wenxiu? I want to see her." The black-robed elder said, "Hierarch Wenxiu is in seclusion." Seclusion? Yi Xian frowned. "How long will it take?" The black-robed elder shook his head. "I don't know." Yi Xian was silent. The black-robed old man said, "Divine Master Yi, although the devouring spirit clan was defeated this time, they will never let it go. They may attack Fu Wenzong next time. You'd better go back and get ready." Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "Senior, please notify me if Miss Wenxiu emerges from her closed-door cultivation." The black-robed elder nodded. "All right." Yi Xian glanced at the courtyard where Zhang Wenxiu resided, and then he said, "Farewell." With that, he disappeared into the horizon. As soon as Yi Xian arrived in the clouds, a woman appeared in front of him. Yi Ling. Yi Xian instantly heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Yi Ling was safe and sound. Even though he knew that Yi Ling was formidable, if the devouring spirit clan intended to target Yi Ling, then Yi Ling would be in great danger. Yi Ling spoke softly when she saw Yi Xian, "It's good that you're fine." Yi Xian spoke in a low voice, "Was Li Mubai the one who stopped you?" Yi Ling nodded. Yi Xian's face fell. "Li Mubai." Yi Xian turned to look in the direction of Immortal Exile City, and a trace of ruthlessness flashed through his eyes. Yi Ling spoke softly, the devouring spirit clan probably bribed him with something. Yi Xian spoke indifferently, no matter what, I'll remember this. Yi Ling nodded. Yes. Then, she looked at Yi Xian, what's your next plan? Yi Xian said, this time, the devouring spirit clan didn't expect that I could escape, and they didn't expect that the worldwide academy would protect me. So, they failed this time. But they definitely won't give up. If I'm not wrong, they'll probably make a move against Fu Wenzong. Fu Wenzong. Yi Ling said, I'll go to Fu Wenzong. Yi Xian nodded. You must go to Fu Wenzong. Only with you can they not dare to act rashly. Yi Ling turned to look in the direction of the devouring spirit clan and said softly, I can't just sit and wait for death. Yi Xian nodded slightly. I can't just sit and wait for death. I have to find a way to contact those big families. Then, he seemed to think of something and looked at Yi Ling, the Wu Kingdom has appeared. Ling, do you have any hatred for the Wu Kingdom? If you do, I won't go to them. Yi Ling shook her head. We used to be enemies. However, with the appearance of the Prophet, we have disappeared from the eyes of the world. As for enmity, those who had enmity with him back then should have all died. Yi Xian smiled. That's good. Because the first place I want to find is the Wu Kingdom. Yi Ling asked, why? Yi Xian said, because the Wu Kingdom didn't completely help the devouring spirit clan just now. That is to say, the Wu Kingdom has its own ideas. As long as they have their own ideas, I will have a chance. Yi Ling said softly, I'm afraid it will be difficult for you to convince them. Yi Xian smiled. It's okay. I have to try. What if I succeed? If I succeed, the devouring spirit clan will have one less helper and we will have one more powerful ally. Yi Ling nodded. You can give it a try. But be careful. Yi Xian smiled. Don't worry. Your brother's ability to escape is very strong. Yi Ling walked in front of Yi Xian. She grabbed Yi Xian's hand and said softly, before, I was very afraid. For the first time, I felt afraid. Yi Xian said, what are you afraid of? Yi Ling looked at Yi Xian. I'm afraid of losing you. Yi Xian was silent. Yi Ling said softly, I want to live well. You also have to live well. We brother and sister have to live well. Okay? Yi Xian gently rubbed Yi Ling's head and said with a smile, okay. Being rubbed by Yi Xian, Yi Ling didn't resist at all. On the contrary, she felt very close to him. After the brother and sister met for a while, Yi Ling left. She went directly to Fu Wenzong. Now, Fu Wenzong must be guarded by a super expert. Otherwise, a sneak attack from the devouring spirit clan could kill Fu Wenzong. After parting with Yi Ling, Yi Xian was preparing to go to Wu country. At this time, an old man suddenly appeared in front of him. Yi Xian held the executing heaven sword in his right hand. The old man's expression changed. He quickly said, Divine Master Yi, don't attack. This old man is Mu Danshan of the Alchemy faction. Alchemy faction? Yi Xian looked at Mu Danshan and said, Senior Mu, is there something you need from me? Mu Danshan said seriously, Divine Master Yi, tell the old man honestly, where did you get the golden pill that you swallowed in the Worldwide Academy? Golden pill. Yi Xian glanced at Mu Danshan. It turned out that she had come for this. The other party's information network was really well informed. At this time, Mu Danshan said, Divine Master Yi, as far as I know, there are 2 Shumi golden pills in this world and these 2 pills are in my alchemy sect. In this world, there is absolutely no one who can refine this Shumi golden pill. Yi Xian asked, why? Mu Danshan said in a deep voice, because in this world, there is no such rare spiritual energy. Moreover, even if there is such rare spiritual energy, no one has that kind of attainment in alchemy. Yi Xian shook his head. You are wrong. Mu Danchen looked at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian said with a smile, as far as I know, there is such rare spiritual energy in this world, and there are also people with such high attainment in alchemy. No, it's spirits. Mu Danchen stared at Yi Xian. Who? Yi Xian was silent. Mu Danchen suddenly bowed respectfully. Divine Master Yi, please tell me. Otherwise, the old man will not be able to eat or sleep in peace. Yi Xian thought for a moment, then he called Xiaolinger out. When she saw Xiaolinger, Mu Danchen's expression suddenly became strange. Divine Master Yi, are you saying that she is the person who refined the pill? Yi Xian nodded. Mu Danchen's face darkened. Divine Master Yi, she is not human. Yi Xian said with a smile, can't someone who isn't human do alchemy? Mu Danchen was speechless. At this time, Yi Xian gently patted Xiaolinger on the shoulder and said with a smile, show this senior what you're capable of. Xiaolinger blinked, then took out the alchemy furnace and began to refine pills on the spot. Yi Xian was also watching seriously. This was the first time he had watched Xiaolinger refine pills so seriously. Xiaolinger was very serious. She put all kinds of elixir materials into the alchemy furnace little by little. She did it very carefully, and her technique was also very skilled. She was not refining a Sumeragine Dan, but a marrow-cleansing spiritual pill. At this moment, Mu Danchen was also fascinated by it. About half an hour later, Xiaolinger waved her small hand, and a wisp of dark purple spiritual energy appeared in her palm. When she saw this wisp of dark purple spiritual energy, Mu Danchen was stunned. Yi Xian was also a little serious. This wisp of spiritual energy was the purest spiritual energy he had ever seen. It was even purer than chaotic qi. Xiaolinger put the wisp of purple energy into the alchemy furnace. Soon, the alchemy furnace began to tremble gradually. About a quarter of an hour later, the lid of the alchemy furnace suddenly opened, and a golden elixir floated out of the alchemy furnace. Xiaolinger's small hand waved, and the golden elixir fell into her hand. Then, she handed the golden elixir to Yi Xian. Yi Xian sniffed it and then gave Xiaolinger a thumbs up. Amazing! After receiving Yi Xian's praise, Xiaolinger's face suddenly showed a bright smile. At this time, Mu Danchen suddenly said in a trembling voice, Divine Master Yi, can you show me this thing? Yi Xian nodded and said with a smile, of course. After saying that, he bent his finger and the golden elixir fell in front of Mu Danchen. Mu Danchen held the golden elixir with both hands. After a while, he said in a trembling voice, the perfect elixir. It's really the perfect elixir, without a trace of impurities. Not even a trace. It's terrible. Yi Xian was a little curious. The perfect elixir? What do you mean? Mu Danchen looked at Yi Xian. Divine Master Yi, you may not know this, but as the saying goes, medicine is 30% poisonous. When we refine elixirs, we have to remove the poison and impurities, but this is very difficult. Even the old man can only remove 80% of the poison. Speaking of this, he looked at Xiaolinger with a complicated expression. But she can remove all the poison in the elixir, and there is no trace of impurities. This is incredible. Yi Xian was very happy when he heard Mu Danchen praise Yi Ling, and he said with a smile, Senior Mu, I still have something to do, so I'll be taking my leave first. As soon as he finished speaking, he was about to leave with Xiaolinger. Meanwhile, Mu Danchen suddenly said, Divine Master Yi, please wait. Yi Xian looked at Mu Danchen. Mu Danchen hesitated for a moment and said, I wonder if this young lady has a master? Yi Xian shook his head. She doesn't. She just learned how to refine elixirs according to some ancient alchemy books. Mu Danchen was visibly moved. What a monstrous genius! As he spoke, he hesitated to speak. Yi Xian smiled and said, "What does Senior Mu want to say?" Mu Danchen hesitated for a moment and said, "The old man wants her to join my alchemy sect." Yi Xian shook his head. "No." Mu Danchen frowned slightly. "Why?" Yi Xian said seriously, "Senior, you know that I, Fu Wenzong, have a great enemy in the Devouring Spirit clan. If she joins my alchemy sect, then your alchemy sect will be implicated as well." How could Mu Danchen not understand what Yi Xian meant? Yi Xian wants my alchemy sect to take a stand. Should I be dragged into this vortex? Mu Danchen fell silent. P.S. I've noticed that some readers are getting more and more naughty. Am I imagining things? Chapter 927. In all fairness, Mu Danchen did not want to get involved in this dispute because the Devouring Spirit clan was very aggressive. If the alchemy sect got involved, it was likely to bring disaster to the alchemy sect. Yi Xian's intention was clear. He wanted the alchemy sect to take a side. Mu Danchen sighed. "Divine Master Yi, I need to be responsible for the entire alchemy sect." Yi Xian nodded and smiled. "I understand. I will not force the alchemy sect to get involved in this dispute." After saying that, he pulled Lil Ling and turned to leave. At this moment, Mu Danchen stood in front of Yi Xian again. He glanced at Lil Linger, hesitated for a moment, and then said, "Master Yi, if you're willing to let him join my alchemy sect, you can name your conditions." Yi Xian thought about it and said, "Senior Mu, do you really think the alchemy sect can avoid this dispute?" Mu Danchen frowned. "What do you mean?" Yi Xian smiled. What was the purpose of the Devouring Spirit clan? It was to destroy all living beings and make the Devouring Spirit clan the sole ruler. Now, although they are only targeting me and the Worldwide Academy, do you really think so? If we die, what do you think they will do? Mu Danchen was silent. Yi Xian smiled. "With all due respect, everyone is now watching me and the Worldwide Academy. But I believe that in the future, your fate will be worse than ours." Mu Danchen said calmly, "Divine Master Yi, you're being a little alarmist. In the past, the Devouring Spirit clan had the strength to dominate the fifth dimension, but now they do not." Yi Xian smiled. "I can understand that the alchemy sect wants to be neutral. After all, the Devouring Spirit clan is not targeting the alchemy sect. And I, Yi Xian, do not want to use Xiao Ling to threaten the alchemy sect. It's just that Xiao Ling is my sister. If she joins the alchemy sect, she will inevitably be targeted by the Devouring Spirit clan. I don't want her to be in any danger." Mu Danchen hurriedly said, "You can rest assured about this, Divine Mentor Yi. Our alchemy sect will protect her with our lives and not let her be in any danger." Yi Xian looked straight at Mu Chen. "None of you are as strong as me. What guarantee do you have? With all due respect, if the Devouring Spirit clan exerts a little pressure on you, what can you do to resist?" Head. Mu Danchen still wanted to say something, but Yi Xian said, "Also, Senior Mu, Xiao Linger has reached such a realm without a teacher. Tell me, why does she still want to go to your alchemy sect? What good would it do her? Want money? Do you think I, Fu Wenzong, am not as rich as your alchemy sect? Learn alchemy techniques? May I ask, who in your alchemy sect is capable of teaching her? Tell me, why does she want to go to your alchemy sect?" Mu Danchen was speechless and could not refute. Comparing money? Fu Wenzong was no less than the alchemy grandmaster. When it came to pill refining techniques, based on the little girl's performance, no one in the alchemy sect was her match. Most importantly, she possessed a rare amount of spiritual energy. Ask yourself, why did she want to go to the alchemy sect with me? At this moment, he suddenly understood one thing. It was not that she begged to join his alchemy sect, but his alchemy sect begged her to join. Yi Xian did not say anything more. He left with Xiaolinger. If joining the alchemy sect was beneficial to Xiaolinger, he did not mind letting Xiaolinger join. However, he was very clear that the alchemy sect did not have the ability to protect Xiaolinger. Moreover, if Xiaolinger joined the alchemy sect, it was very likely that she would be used. Although Xiaolinger was usually cunning, she would definitely not be able to play with these old guys. Therefore, he would not let Xiaolinger leave him. This time, Yi Xian did not give Mudanchen any chance. He directly disappeared into the horizon on his sword. In the same place, Mudanchen sighed softly. He, Fu Wenzong, really did not have any capital to ask a person who could refine Sumeru pills to join the alchemy sect. If she came to the alchemy sect, what could the alchemy sect give her? They could not give her anything. Moreover, his idea just now was to ask Xiaolinger for advice on how to refine Sumeru pills. Since he was begging her, he definitely had to pay something. After a moment of silence, Mudanchen turned and left. The direction he left in was the direction of Fu Wenzong. This time, Yi Xian learned to be smart. He did not openly fly on his sword, but directly entered the realm of emptiness. Right now, it was better to keep a low profile. He did not want to be besieged again. Wu country. The Wu country was located in the martial world. This martial world was a world forcibly opened up by the king of the Wu country. The reason why such a world was opened up was because the prophets suppressed the entire fifth dimension with an invincible posture. The king of the Wu country immediately chose to hide from the world and avoid the sharp edge. After that, the Wu country slowly disappeared from the eyes of the world. This time, Yi Xian's purpose was to rope in the Wu country. The devouring spirit clan was asking for help. Naturally, he would also ask for help. About an hour later, Yi Xian arrived at the legendary entrance to the martial world. Yi Xian did not sneak in. This time, he was here to talk business, so he could not sneak in. As soon as Yi Xian revealed his true body, a powerful aura directly locked him. Yi Xian cupped his fists. Fu Wenzong, Yi Xian, is here to see the king of the Wu country. After a moment, a young man suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. The young man looked at Yi Xian and then said, "Follow me." Yi Xian nodded and followed the young man into the martial world. In the martial world, Yi Xian glanced around. This martial world was vast, rich in spiritual qi, and there were many experts. As soon as he entered, he felt many powerful auras. Very powerful. After a moment, the young man brought Yi Xian to the capital of the Wu country. Yi Xian looked around. There were many people in the city. Of course, in this world where everyone practiced martial arts, these people were also martial artists. During this time, powerful auras swept over him from time to time. Soon, the young man brought Yi Xian to the Wu country's imperial palace. However, when the young man brought him to a hall, he suddenly said, "Divine Master Yi, please wait a moment." After saying that, he turned around and entered the hall. Yi Xian looked around the imperial palace. This palace was not very big, but there were crouching tigers and hidden dragons. He could feel many hidden auras. Unfathomable. Whether it was the devouring spirit clan or the Wu country, they both gave him an unfathomable feeling. These ancient forces had a long history and deep heritage, and their strength was even more unfathomable. In the past, there were prophets who suppressed these ancient forces, but now, there was no one in the fifth dimension who could suppress these ancient forces. He could not be careless and underestimate the enemy. At this moment, the sound of footsteps came from the side. Yi Xian turned his head and looked. He knew the person who came. It was Wu Shengnan. Wu Xingnan was still dressed in white armor, with a sheathed long blade on her back, looking valiant and heroic. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Miss Wu." Wu Xingnan glanced at Yi Xian. "Father is a little busy right now and can't see Divine Master Yi. If Divine Master Yi doesn't mind, how about I accompany you for a stroll?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "Of course I don't mind." Wu Xingnan nodded slightly. Just like that, with Wu Xingnan leading the way, the two slowly strolled around the imperial palace. The two walked side by side. Wu Xingnan suddenly said, "Divine Master Yi, why are you here?" Yi Xian said seriously, "Miss Wu, as far as I know, you seem to be working with the Devouring Spirit clan?" Wu Xingnan nodded, "Yes." Yi Xian said, "I'm a little curious. What kind of reward did the Devouring Spirit clan offer you?" Wu Xingnan said, "Some things that my Wu country needs right now, and some reasons that my Wu country can't refuse." Yi Xian asked, "What reasons?" Wu Xingnan looked at Yi Xian, "To not let the Azura Kingdom and the Worldwide Academy rise." Very straightforward. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Miss Wu, if I may ask, do you know the true strength of the Devouring Spirit clan?" Wu Xingnan shook her head, "I don't know." Yi Xian stopped and looked straight at Wu Xingnan. "Miss Wu, I'll be straightforward. The Wu country's current intention should be to prevent the Azura Kingdom and the Worldwide Academy from rising, but also not to let the Devouring Spirit clan dominate, right?" Wu Xingnan nodded. Yi Xian said, "In addition, if I'm not wrong, the Wu country also covets that study house, right?" Wu Xingnan said, "Yes. That study house has something that my Wu country must take." Yi Xian said with a smile, "Miss Wu, do you think the Worldwide Academy and I are a greater threat, or the Devouring Spirit clan?" Wu Xingnan said, "The Devouring Spirit clan." Saying this, she looked at Yi Xian. "The Devouring Spirit clan can give us what we want." Yi Xian said, "I can also give it to you. Don't you want the thing in the study house? I can give it to you." Wu Xingnan looked at Yi Xian, not saying anything. Yi Xian said seriously, "That study house is in the academy, and the key is in my hands. As long as we want, we can open that study house at any time." Wu Xingnan said, "You open it and give it to me. I promise you that the Wu country will no longer participate in this matter." Yi Xian said seriously, "Miss Wu, it's not very kind of you to say that. My idea is, your Wu country will stand on our side and help us open the study house. What do you think?" Wu Xingnan shook her head, "No." Yi Xian frowned, "Why?" Wu Xingnan said, "If we stand on your side and help you open the study house, my Wu country will be targeted by countless forces. If my Wu country stands on the side of the Devouring Spirit clan, it will be us and countless forces against you. My Wu country will only take one of them and they will give us face." Yi Xian was silent. He knew that if he wanted to persuade this Miss Wu, he had to use his ultimate skill. Bluff. He had to bluff. Yi Xian looked at Wu Xingnan. "Do you know why the Devouring Spirit clan wants to seize that study house?" Wu Xingnan asked, "Why?" Yi Xian said softly, "Because in that study house, there is a very, very important existence to the Devouring Spirit clan." Wu Xingnan frowned, "Don't beat around the bush, just say it." Yi Xian said, "Miss Wu, do you know why the Devouring Spirit clan suddenly became so low-key? Because with their current strength, they cannot dominate the entire fifth dimension. However, if they open that study house, they can dominate the entire fifth dimension. At that time, let alone the ancient race, the headmaster, the Wu country, the evil spirit ancestor, they will all be useless in front of them." Speaking of this, his expression suddenly became solemn, because in that study house, the peerless powerhouse of the Devouring Spirit clan was suppressed. Let me tell you, when the Prophet suppressed the Devouring Spirit clan, he did not kill the peerless powerhouse of the Devouring Spirit clan. Instead, he suppressed him in that study house. If they open that study house and awaken that peerless powerhouse, at that time, can you imagine, now that the prophet is no longer here, who in the world can suppress him? Hearing this, Wu Shengnan frowned even deeper. That person did not die. Yi Xian nodded. Yes, this matter was personally told to me by Xiao Ta, because he participated in that matter back then. Xiao Ta, Wu Shengnan looked straight at Yi Xian. What you said is true. Yi Xian said seriously, I can swear in the name of Xiao Ta, swear it. The small tower suddenly began to tremble. Chapter 928. Protest. Xiao Ta was protesting, but it was useless. In front of Yi Xian, Wu Shengnan just stared at him. Yi Xian's expression did not change. Miss Wu, what I said is not false. The reason why the Devouring Spirit clan is so eager to open that study room is because they want to unseal their ancestor. Once that expert is unsealed, the balance that the Wu country wants will be broken. At that time, if the Devouring Spirit clan wants your country to kneel and swear allegiance to them, will you agree? Or will you not agree? Wu Shengnan was silent. As Yi Xian said, the Wu country wanted benefits, but they did not want to fight with any of the forces. On the other hand, the Wu kingdom was able to act in such a way because the Devouring Spirit clan and Myriad Dimension Academy didn't want to offend them. However, if the Myriad Dimension Academy was annihilated and the Devouring Spirit clan really unsealed that ancestor of theirs, then the situation would be greatly different. At this time, Yi Xian said, Miss Wu, the Devouring Spirit clan's current strength is still a mystery. Why? Because they do not dare to expose too much, fearing that they will make you afraid. Forgive me for speaking bluntly, but if they open that study room and awaken that ancestor, the entire fifth dimension will have to surrender to their Devouring Spirit clan. At that time, the Wu country will find that they are much more terrifying than our Shura country and the Worldwide Academy. After all, Ling Air does not have the heart to dominate, and the Worldwide Academy is already half dead. They only want to protect themselves and do not have any great ambitions. But the Devouring Spirit clan is different. They are very ambitious, otherwise, they would not want to kill one of the 6 great experts from the beginning. Wu Shengnan said softly, what you said is half true and half false. Yi Xian, Wu Shengnan did not speak again. She slowly walked away. Yi Xian followed. He did not disturb Wu Shengnan. He knew that the woman in front of him was thinking. The reason why he said so much was because he knew that Wu Shengnan's position in the Wu country was not low. If he could persuade her, there was a great chance that he could persuade the Wu country. In this way, the two slowly walked away. A moment later, Wu Shengnan suddenly said, We've investigated you. Yi Xian smiled and said, Miss Wu, feel free to speak your mind. Wu Shengnan said, You are a very thick-skinned person. You are very good at deceiving people, and you like to use crafty plots and schemes. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, Miss Wu, you can tell me about my strong points. Wu Shengnan said, I value friendship and righteousness, and I have my principles. I will not betray the people around me, and I will sacrifice myself for my friends and family. Yi Xian asked, I've never had an ally, have I? Wu Shengnan shook her head, no. Yi Xian stood in front of Wu Shengnan, Miss Wu, you're a direct person, and I'm also a direct person. Let's all be a bit more direct. Are you willing to ally with the Devouring Spirit clan or with me? Or could it be that you want to continue watching from the sidelines and reap the spoils? Wu Shengnan was silent. Yi Xian looked at Wu Shengnan silently, waiting for her answer. After a moment, Wu Shengnan suddenly said, To convince the Wu country, you must convince them of what you just said. Yi Xian asked, What is it? Wu Shengnan said, you tricked me into saying that the Devouring Spirit Clan's ancestor is in the myriad-dimensional library. Yi Xian said with a straight face, Miss Wu, I, Yi Xian, never lie. What I said just now is the truth. Wu Xingnan looked at Yi Xian and shook her head, your skin is unparalleled. Yi Xian, Wu Xingnan said, to convince the Wu country, you must convince them that the Devouring Spirit Clan's ancestor is imprisoned in the library. Only then will the elders of the Wu country stop the Devouring Spirit Clan from opening the library, or at least not ally with them. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Miss Wu, why are you so sure I'm lying? Wu Xingnan glanced at Yi Xian, intuition. Yi Xian was speechless. Wu Xingnan said softly, compared to the Devouring Spirit Clan, I am more willing to ally with you. However, if I'm not wrong, even if the Wu country ally with you, they will not send any experts to help you. Yi Xian was silent. He knew what Wu Xingnan meant. Even if the Wu country allied with the Myriad Dimensions Academy, they would definitely not follow the Myriad Dimensions Academy to fight the Devouring Spirit Clan to the death. The Wu country would definitely not help either side. They would not help the Myriad Dimensions Academy, nor the Devouring Spirit Clan. At this time, neither the Worldwide Academy or the Devouring Spirit Clan would dare to cause trouble for the Wu country. Simply put, as long as the Wu country did not take action, they could maximize their benefits. For Yi Xian, as long as the Wu country did not help the Devouring Spirit Clan, it was already a good ending. Yi Xian looked at Wu Xingnan, Miss Wu, how can I convince the elders of the Wu country that what I said is true? Wu Xingnan opened her palm, let me see that pagoda. Yi Xian did not refuse. With a flick of his finger, Xiaofan fell into Wu Xingnan's palm. Looking at the World Prison Pagoda in her hand, Wu Xingnan said softly, I want to go in. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before nodding. Then, he led Wu Xingnan into Xiaofan. Inside the pagoda, Wu Xingnan looked around and finally came to the 9th floor. She looked at the door of the 9th floor and said softly, are you the person I am looking for? A moment later, the 9th floor said, the person you are looking for should be on the 10th floor. The 10th floor? Wu Xingnan looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian frowned, Senior, there are only 9 floors. Where are the other 3? The 9th floor said, the entrance to the 10th floor is in my building. However, the current you does not have the ability to open it. Yi Xian asked in a deep voice, what kind of strength do I need to open it? The 9th floor said, Dao Law. You must at least find the Dao Law of the 8th floor. Dao Law. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian looked at Wu Xingnan, Miss Wu, is there someone you know in here? Wu Xingnan nodded, an ancestor of my Wu country. Yi Xian said, I can't open the seal of the 10th floor for the time being. Wu Xingnan nodded, it's fine. He has been locked up for so many years anyway. A little more time won't hurt. Yi Xian, a moment later, Yi Xian and Wu Xingnan left the World Prison Pagoda. Outside the World Prison Pagoda, Wu Xingnan walked into the distance, go back. Go back? Yi Xian was stunned for a moment before hurrying to Wu Xingnan's side, I haven't seen your ruler yet. Wu Xingnan shook her head, no need. I promise you, we won't help the Devouring Spirit tribe for the time being. Yi Xian glanced at Wu Xingnan. He knew that this woman's status in the Wu country was even higher than he imagined. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and was about to leave when Wu Xingnan suddenly said, are you interested in going to a secret realm? Secret realm? Yi Xian looked at Wu Xingnan, what secret realm? Wu Xingnan said, my Wu country discovered an unknown secret realm in the starry sky. There are many barriers and seals in that secret realm. My Wu country is afraid of destroying that secret realm, so we didn't dare to break through it. Saying so, she looked at Yi Xian, as far as I know, there is a Dao Law in your pagoda that is very good at sealing barriers, right? Lian Qian. Yi Xian nodded, yes. Wu Xingnan said, you and I will explore that secret realm. I will take you there, and you will be responsible for breaking the barriers and seals. If there are treasures inside, it will depend on your own luck. What do you think? Yi Xian thought for a moment and then said, all right. Wu Xingnan nodded, wait a moment, I have something to take care of. Saying so, she turned and left. On the spot, Yi Xian said softly, Miss Lian Qian, tell me honestly, what is inside that study room? Everyone in the world was fighting over that study room, but very few people actually knew what was inside. Even Yi Xian didn't know. Lian Qian was silent for a moment, and then she said, there are many things left behind by Master in the study room. When Master was still alive, he liked to do research in the study room. Master was proficient in everything, including talismans, alchemy, equipment forging, and array formations. Besides that, he had a very deep understanding of martial arts. There are definitely some divine abilities and martial arts that he left behind in the study room. In addition, he also liked to create treasures and the like, so there are definitely many treasures inside. In short, the things inside are very precious, and anyone who obtains them can definitely change their fate. Prophet. Yi Xian said softly, why is he so monstrous? Lian Qian said, some people are born different from others. Yi Xian nodded, I agree with this, such as me. Lian Qian said, are you really planning to be shameless? Yi Xian's face was full of black lines, Miss Lian Qian, am I not good enough? Lian Qian said, in terms of shamelessness, I think no one in the entire fifth dimension can compare to you. Yi Xian, at this time, Wu Xingnan suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian, let's go. Saying so, she waved her hand, and a transmission array suddenly appeared in front of her. After the two entered the transmission array, they disappeared into thin air. After a quarter of an hour, the two appeared in a starry sky. Yi Xian glanced at the surrounding starry sky. The starry sky was deep and boundless, and he couldn't see the end of it. Moreover, there were some powerful auras around them. Yi Xian said, Miss Wu, this is? Wu Xingnan said, my Wu country's experts, they are secretly guarding for us to prevent any accidents. Accidents? Yi Xian asked, what accidents? Wu Xingnan looked at Yi Xian, danger. Saying so, she suddenly pointed her finger at the depths of the starry sky. With this point, the starry sky suddenly trembled, and soon, a black door appeared in the depths of the starry sky. On the black door, there was a deep mark, and from the looks of it, it was a bit like a sword mark. Yi Xian said, Miss Wu, what secret realm is this? Wu Xingnan shook her head, I don't know. It was discovered by my Wu country by chance. Yi Xian looked at the black door, and on the left side of the door, there was a line of words. Yi Xian carefully looked at it, and when he saw the line of words, he was slightly stunned. So arrogant? On the left side of the door, there was a carving, with a sword in hand, I am invincible, and I specialize in subduing those who refuse to submit. P.S. I will be honest, recently I went to the healthcare center because of the plot. You all know, some plots are very difficult to write without some social experience. In order to write more realistically and make everyone feel more immersed, I had to personally try it out. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.